Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Activate the Emperor system and summon Dian Wei at the beginning of the game. Chapter 1. Your Highness, wake up. What are you doing standing still? Is the doctor here? Hey, what should I do? Noisy shouts filled Ning Fan's mind. His fingers trembled a few times, and he felt dizzy and a sharp pain in his head. Your Highness is awake. Woke up. The voice of the waiter next to him was much louder. Ning Fan opened his eyes leisurely, and when he rolled his eyes, he saw an old man wearing black uniforms. Your Highness, you are awake now. How are you? Are you feeling unwell? Ning Fan covered his head with one hand, a strange memory constantly hitting his mind, giving him a splitting headache. Dayu, I've traveled through time. The second prince of Dayu Kingdom. Ning Fan struggled to support the bed with his hands, trying to sit up. The two young maids next to him hurriedly stepped forward to help him. Feeling the pain of breaking his limbs, he couldn't help but frown slightly. I didn't expect that I actually traveled through time. It's not a fantasy world, nor a world of cultivation, but an imaginary historical dynasty. The kingdoms are at war and the barbarians are in chaos. There was a deep glimmer in Ning Fan's eyes. God had given him a chance to live a new life. In this life, would he be allowed to live a busy life like his previous life? Your Highness, the doctor is coming soon, please be patient for a moment. Hey, Your Highness, you said you usually just mess around, but this time you are really too wanton. The Duke of Jingguo belongs to a family that is full of loyal men and women who have made great contributions to me, Dayu. How could you? The old man in black sighed sadly, with a look of worry that could not be concealed on his face. I'm afraid His Majesty won't be able to stand up for you this time. This beating will be in vain. If Duke Jingguo insists on pursuing the case, I'm afraid it will be you this time. After hearing the old man's words, Ning Fan's mind seemed to be enlightened, and familiar and unfamiliar pictures flashed through his mind one by one. Through the memory of his predecessor, he knew the whole story. The predecessor was weak and troubled since he was a child, so he was favored by the emperor. His pampering made him have a naughty character, uneducated and unskilled. He ran rampant in the imperial city all day long and did evil. But when it comes to people, he don't do anything. Unexpectedly, this time I would actually target that person. You know, that person's father was the god of war Dayu, who had 300,000 soldiers, and he was ranked first among Dayu's military generals at that time. As the eldest daughter of Duke Jingguo, Li Shuning is also a woman who is not inferior to men. In just 3 years, she galloped across the northern battlefield and became an iron-blooded female general known as a female Shira. Under the bewitchment of a few friends, he actually tricked people into going to the theater and drugged them. Li Shuning, a female general who was able to gain a great reputation on the battlefield of intrigues, was not an ordinary person. She failed to steal the chicken, but was beaten up and fell down the stairs in a hurry. Ning Fan couldn't help but smile and shake his head. It was a miracle that his predecessor could survive to this day. Over the years, there were at least 7 or 8 death row inmates who had helped him wipe their butts. System, are you there? Congratulations to the host, the Eternal Emperor system is activated. The system is loading. Hearing a sudden notification sound in his mind, Ning Fan was trembling with excitement, with a look of surprise on his face. As expected, it is a must-have system for time travelers. Uncle Lin, there is no need to summon the Imperial Doctor, I am fine. Your Highness, you have fainted. It doesn't matter, you all stand down, I want to take a rest. Yes, the old man in black clothes bowed respectfully, turned away, closed the door himself, and left silently. The system is loaded successfully. After system evaluation, the host is in a difficult situation and will receive an activation gift package. Activate the gift package. Ning Fan looked stunned and quickly asked, System, what functions do you have? This system can summon outstanding Chinese people from the host's previous life to assist the host in becoming an emperor through the ages and creating a godless dynasty. One emperor through the ages. So, do I want to follow the path of a god king? A flash of light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. If there was no system, with his background in the past 2 lives and his identity in this life, he might choose to be a free and easy free king and continue his shameless dandy life. But now with the assistance of the system, the high-ranking 9th 5 position may not be impossible to compete for. The blood flowing in my body is a constraint for that golden throne, but it is also a great help. Maybe it's time to have a good chat with my mother and concubine. Thinking of his identity, Ning Fan couldn't help but narrowed his eyes. His mother-in-law was Princess Zhou, and he had the blood of the two royal families flowing through him. 13 years ago, my father was still a prince. Emperor Yu destroyed the Zhou dynasty, and his mother and concubine were thrown into the cold palace. He almost died. After a period of uncertainty, Emperor Yu fought out of that bloody storm and ascended the throne of the emperor. Although Emperor Yu loved their mother and son in every possible way, Ning Fan knew that since that turmoil, he had no chance of being crowned emperor. This was one of the reasons why Emperor Yu allowed him to act recklessly in the capital. Bird in a cage. If he hadn't traveled through time, his predecessor would probably have had a worry-free life, but he wouldn't have been able to get the throne, let alone become a vassal. System, open the activation gift package. Congratulations to the master, you have obtained a top general summoning card, a marrow cleansing and bone breaking pill, and a book of the 13 deadly spears manual. Hearing the prompt sound of the system in his mind, Ning Fan clicked on the reward details page and saw the specific introduction of the task reward. Top general summoning card. Can randomly summon a top general after the pre-Qin dynasty, without previous life memory. Marrow cleansing and bone cutting pill. Can cleanse the marrow and cut the bones, improve the tendons and bones, remove impurities in the body, and improve martial arts talent. 13 deadly spears. Passed down from the mysterious spearmaster of Blue Star, the top martial arts spear manual, practiced to perfection, every spear kills, sweeping across the army. After seeing the introduction of the three, Ning Fan's face also showed a touch of joy, and at the same time asked the question in his heart. System, how many levels are there for summoning cards? Master, summoning cards are divided into first class, top level, and peerless. That is to say, the civil officials and generals summoned by the master are at least first class. Take the Three Kingdoms as an example. Generals are Yan Liang and Wen Chou in the Three Kingdoms period, and civil officials are Xu Yu and Guo Tu. Top civil officials and generals, such as Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, Xu Shu, Chen Gong, etc. are all top level. Peerless talents, such as Liu Biyu, Zhao Yun, Zhu Liang, Guo Jia, Xuan Yu, etc. So that's it. Ning Fan's face showed a look of realization, and he nodded slightly and said, how to get a summoning card. Master can exchange it through merit points, or complete system tasks to trigger task rewards. Merit points. That's right. The system didn't wait for Ning Fan to continue asking, and explained, as long as the master has made contributions to the country, he can get the corresponding merit points. Ning Fan listened to the system's introduction, his eyes were shining, and he didn't know which top general would be summoned by the top summoning card. System, use the top-level general summon card. Use successfully, please wait. Congratulations, Master, for summoning the top military commander of the late Han Dynasty, the ancient evil, Dian Wei. As soon as the system's prompt sounded, Ning Fan's face showed a touch of surprise. He didn't expect that it was Dian Wei, who was known for his unparalleled foot combat. Boss Cao's personal guard, loyal and extraordinary, but unfortunately, due to the outbreak of Boss Cao's special attributes, he died tragically at the hands of Zhang Xu in the Battle of Wanson. Master, do you want to check Dian Wei's attribute page? Yes. Ning Fan's face also showed a touch of expectation. In the previous life, the wild ranking of the Three Kingdoms listed Dian Wei as the third most powerful general in the Three Kingdoms, but Dian Wei did not have any outstanding record. Compared with Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, his reputation was not prominent. Ning Fan didn't know who was stronger or weaker, but there was one thing that was certain: Dian Wei's strength, looking at the entire Three Kingdoms, was enough to rank among the top 5. Name: Dian Wei. Loyalty: diehard. Force: 98. Intelligence: 68. Leadership: 79. Politics: 60. Army: none. Magic weapons: large double halberds, small flying halberds, long swords. Unique skills: 5-step flying halberd technique. Special attributes: divine power. Born with divine power, force value increases by 2 points. Guardian, when guarding the Lord, force value increases by 1 to 3 points randomly. Dian Wei, half-step peerless, loyal, brave and honest, can be a guard. After reading Dian Wei's attribute page, Ning Fan's face also showed a trace of surprise. He didn't expect that the system could actually digitize a person's ability. In this way, it is more conducive to making the best use of people. With special attributes, it is a full 100 force value. With such strength, I am afraid 1 foot has already stepped into the threshold of the peerless world. System, where is Dian Wei now? Reply to the master, Dian Wei will surrender within a day. Ning Fan nodded slightly. According to the system, these summoned civil officials and generals have their own experience and identity in this world, which is equivalent to a living person, but the personality and ability are the same as in the previous life. Everyone is flesh and blood, not a cold tool. System, where is the marrow cleansing and bone breaking pill now? Reply to the master, it has been distributed to the system space, do you want to take it out? Take it out. Ning Fan gave an order, and his consciousness sank into the system space, which is similar to a 2-dimensional 9-square grid. Each grid is an independent space of 1 cubic meter, which can be used to store items. It is a bit similar to the storage spirit ring in the fantasy novels of the previous life. Marrow cleansing and bone strengthening pill. Taking this pill will change my martial arts aptitude. My body is too weak now. Ning Fan looked at the jade bottle in his hand, opened it, and a round, crystal clear pill appeared in his hand. He put it directly to his mouth and swallowed it in one gulp. The pill melted in his mouth, and a warm feeling flowed from his throat to his whole body, limbs and bones. Ning Fan only felt itchy all over, but he didn't know where to start, until a foul smell filled his mouth and nose, and his clothes were all stained with sweat. On his skin, some visible black stains spread all over his body, almost making him vomit. Someone come. Your Highness. The butler Lin Yang, who had been waiting outside the door, hurried in and bowed to Ning Fan respectfully. Your Highness, what are your orders? Tell someone to prepare hot water. I want to take a bath and change clothes. Yes. Lin Yang frowned slightly when he smelled the foul smell in the room, but when he found that the smell was emitted from his own prince, he quickly bowed respectfully and quietly retreated. There seems to be no obvious change. However, the skin seems to be smoother and whiter. The flexibility of the body has also increased a little. Ning Fan checked his body and walked towards the bedroom. With the service of several beautiful maids, Ning Fan took a hot bath and changed into a clean set of clothes. Just as he was about to study 13 deadly shots, he saw Lin Yang hurriedly walked in. Your Highness, there is a strong man outside the door. He said that he came to surrender on your orders. Oh, Ning Fan heard this and a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. Is it Dian Wei? Let him in. Yes. Ning Fan was sitting in the hall, and a chaotic sound of footsteps sounded. Then he saw Lin Yang leading a burly man in. Seeing Ning Fan sitting at the top, he saluted quickly. Your Highness, the man is here. Well, Uncle Lin, you go down first. But Your Highness, it doesn't matter. Ning Fan waved his hand and said softly, this is my man, no need to worry. Yes. Lin Yang stayed on Dian Wei for a moment, bowed silently and retreated. Ning Fan's eyes also fell on Dian Wei, who was more than 9 feet tall, with exposed chest muscles, strong arms, tiger eyes wide open, dark complexion, and the whole person was sticking there, exuding a simple and honest atmosphere. Dian Wei, meet the Lord. Ha ha ha, Eli, I finally got you here. Ning Fan laughed loudly, personally stepped forward to help Dian Wei up, patted his shoulder, and said softly, Eli, from now on, the king's safety is in your hands. Don't worry, Lord, with me here, no one can touch you. Dian Wei smiled honestly, then scratched his head. However, the housekeeper just took away my double halberds, the Lord must let me guard with the halberds. Okay. Ning Fan smiled and shouted to the door, and Lin Yang ordered someone to send Dian Wei's double halberds. Seeing Dian Wei holding the double halberds, like a door god, standing quietly on one side, full of security and full of deterrence. Your Highness, not good. A hurried footstep sounded. Lin Yang frowned slightly, and was about to go out, when he saw a figure rushing in, kneeling on the ground, crying and saying, the young master of the Jingguo mansion led the army to kill, saying that he wanted to ask for an explanation for his sister. Your Highness, the young master Li is a famous little bully, you should find a place to hide quickly. Li Yan. Ning Fan's mind instantly added more information about this person. Although they are both top second generation in the Beijing circle, they are not from the same circle. 3 years ago, this kid followed his father to the war. Although he was not as dazzling as the eldest daughter of the Li family, he was still a good general. Unexpectedly, now, the Li family siblings actually returned to Beijing at the same time. Your Highness, the Li family kid is a well-known tough guy. Looking at the entire capital, no one can control him except the eldest daughter of the Li family. Otherwise, you should stay out of the spotlight. If this kid gets too excited, he might disturb your Highness. Lin Bo, who was standing by, also felt the thorniness of the matter and advised softly. No need. A guest is a guest. How can you avoid him? Ning Fan was also a little depressed. His predecessor had caused trouble, but he had to clean up his mess. It was really unlucky. Let's go and meet this idiot from the Li family. Seeing that he couldn't persuade him, Lin Yong had no choice but to lead Ning Fan towards the front of the palace. Before he reached the house, he heard an angry shout. Why, you bullied my sister and you know you were wrong. Are you being a coward? Let Ning Fan get out of here. This fool dares to act but doesn't dare to act like that. My sister fought for me, Deu, through life and death on the front line, but when she returns to the capital, she is tricked and humiliated by this beast. Isn't it chilling? Even if this matter comes to His Majesty, you must give me an explanation. Ning Fan suddenly stopped, with a solemn look on his face. Lin Yong quickly comforted him. Your Highness, please don't take this kid's words to heart. He lost his mother when he was a child, and was raised by the Li family's daughter. The two siblings have a deep relationship. It's a bit too much to talk, so don't argue with him. Lin Yong had a worried look on his face, fearing that the matter would be brought to the attention of the emperor. By then, His Highness would not be able to get any benefits. I have my own plans. Ning Fan looked calm and strode towards the gate of the palace. He saw a man in armor and more than 10 guards standing in front of Prince Xuanyang's palace. Ning Fan, get out of here quickly, otherwise I will crush your Prince Xuanyang's mansion today. Li Yan slowly raised his right hand, about to give the order to break into the mansion, when he saw a group of people striding out of the mansion. The leader was wearing a white python robe, with a handsome face and a rather heroic appearance. Ning Fan. Li Yan's eyes fell on Ning Fan, and he was instantly filled with endless anger. He immediately got off his horse, raised his fist, and rushed straight towards Ning Fan. Little father-in-law, stop. Lin Yong's expression changed, and he was about to raise his foot to block Ning Fan when he saw a burly figure step out from his side, waving his iron fist towards the approaching figure. When evil comes, don't hurt anyone. Ning Fan hurriedly warned him. When Dian Wei heard this, he silently withdrew a few % of his strength. The two fists clashed directly with each other. With a muffled sound, Li Yan felt his whole arm go numb, and the bones in his hands seemed to be broken. The force of the shock knocked him back several steps before he could stabilize his body. On the other hand, the strong man like an iron tower in front of him did not move at all. General, the faces of the soldiers behind Li Yan changed and they drew their swords at each other. The guards of Prince Xuanyang's mansion also showed no signs of weakness and stepped forward to block Ning Fan. Stop it all. Ning Fan shouted low and looked at the royal guards. Stand back. When evil comes, you come back too. Yes. Seeing Ning Fan standing up, Li Yan ignored the pain in his arm and looked at him coldly, waiting for his explanation. Master Li, it is really inappropriate to mobilize troops and mobilize people like this today. After all, we are at the feet of the emperor. If things get too big, neither you nor I will be able to get along. On the contrary, it will damage the reputation of your eldest sister. I will give an explanation to my sister within 3 days. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, Li Yan had no reaction, but Lin Yong beside him seemed to have seen a ghost. Is this something that my prince can say? According to the personality of the prince, regardless of whether he is taking advantage of it or not, he should rush up first and curse him loudly, and then let his guards swarm him and beat him up first. But today, the prince actually started talking to others. Could it be that he has changed his gender? Humph, I will wait for you for 3 days to see what you have to say. Otherwise, even if we are in front of the Holy Emperor, I, the Duke of Jingguo, will never give up. After Li Yan said a harsh word, He held his arms and walked away. Ning Fan looked at his back and turned his head to look at Lin Yang. Uncle Lin, go find out why the Li family brothers and sisters returned to Beijing. Lin Yang looked stunned. Looking at Ning Fan's solemn expression, he quickly bowed his hands and said, yes. Royal Palace. Royal Study Room. A figure knelt quietly in front of the emperor and described in detail what happened in front of Prince Xuanyang's palace. He even recounted the conversation between Ning Fan and Li Yan word for word. Emperor Yu, who was reviewing the memorial, trembled when he heard Ning Fan's actions. The pen and ink dripped directly on the memorial, but he didn't care at all. He looked up at the figure below and said in a solemn voice, "You will tell me what I said. Repeat it again." "Yes." After the man bowed respectfully, he spoke in a deep voice. His Second Highness said that today we are so mobilized and mobilized. Emperor Yu listened carefully, placed the wolf hair in his hand on the inkstone, and murmured, "Did this kid suddenly become enlightened?" "Wrong. Go and send someone to investigate the matter at Fengxiang Tower for me. The second child thing is not that simple. There is also the guard next to the second child, I want to know his details." Emperor Yu's eyes sparkled with sharpness, and he murmured, "That boy from the Li family is a master who never wants to suffer losses. It's not easy to be able to knock him back with one blow." "As you command." The man in black left the study quietly. Just as Emperor Yu was writing, he seemed to have thought of something again. He whispered to the eunuch who was serving him, "Send someone to go to the Jingguo Duke's mansion and reward you with some pearls and jade articles. Comfort the Li girl. Promise." After the figure in the royal study disappeared, Emperor Yu's eyes suddenly flashed with a sharp light. "It would be okay if no one was behind it, but if someone really uses my son as a gunman." Humph. A hint of murderous intent swept up, and the temperature of the entire imperial study seemed to drop a lot. Xuanyang Palace. Ning Fan sat in the middle hall, quietly waiting for news from Lin Yang. "Your Highness." A figure strode into the hall, first stopped at Dian Wei for a moment, then looked at Ning Fan and bowed respectfully. "Have you found out?" "Your Highness, I have already found out that Li Shuning returned to Beijing this time because of a marriage contract in previous years." "Marriage contract? That's right." Lin Yang nodded slightly and explained. In the early years, Duke Jingguo had made a verbal agreement with Earl Chang'an to marry Li Shuning to Earl Chang'an's eldest son. Now, the eldest son of Earl Chang'an's mansion has reached the right age to marry and brought up the old contract. Li Shuning came for this matter. "What does the Li family mean?" "Your Highness, I have found out that 3 days ago, Li Shuning went to Earl Chang'an's mansion to cancel the engagement." Earl Chang'an's mansion. Ning Fan's face showed a trace of hesitation, and he murmured, "If I remember correctly, Earl Chang'an is a supporter of my fourth brother." "What does your Highness mean?" "It is no secret that Earl Chang'an supports my fourth brother in the court. Once Earl Chang'an's mansion and Duke Jingguo's mansion are married, it is equivalent to indirectly making Duke Jingguo's mansion drag him into the water and put him in the camp of the fourth brother." "How is this possible? Now that His Majesty is in his prime and the royal family has not been established, how could the Jingguo mansion be involved in the fight for the throne?" "Ha ha." Ning Fan smiled coldly. "My fourth brother has always been dull, and Chang'an Bo is too naive. Not to mention a verbal agreement in the early years, even if it was a written engagement, with the status and reputation of Jingguo Gong in my Deu, how could he agree to his marriage? It should be a joke made by the two adults after drinking, but Chang'an Bo seems to take it seriously." "But, Your Highness, does this have anything to do with you? Could this be related to the matter of Fengxiang Tower?" Lin Yang looked at Ning Fan with some doubts. "Our second master never cared about the government. He drank and had fun every day, listened to music in brothels, and lived a carefree life. He was never interested in these intrigues, but why did he care about the government now?" "HMPH, the matter of Fengxiang Tower was done by Lin Chong and his gang." "What?" Lin Yang's face was solemn, and there was a bit of anger in his eyes. "Your Highness, do you mean that Lin Chong and his gang framed you?" "It can't be called framing, at most it can be regarded as seduction. Even the sleeping pills were prepared for me, just waiting for me to take the bait. But you know they have ill intentions, why do you still?" Lin Yang looked at Ning Fan cautiously and asked softly. Ning Fan showed a helpless look on his face. He couldn't say that it was the fool in his previous life who was led by others. A gentleman loves a beautiful lady. Ah, Lin Yong was speechless. He knew his own prince's character very well. But your highness, why did they do this? Why do this? Ning Fan fell into a brief silence and said calmly, if I am not mistaken, they should be planning for my cheap elder brother. Prince Shang. Lin Yong frowned slightly, pondered for a moment, and gradually revealed a hint of realization. The Lin family and the Zheng family are both relatives of His Highness Prince Shang. Naturally, they don't want to see the Jingguo mansion turn to His Highness the Fourth Prince. So, they want to use your hand to destroy the marriage between the two families. Yes, this is also my guess. Ning Fan nodded slightly and pondered. However, Lin Chuxi and Zheng Zan should not be so short-sighted. Quote, anyone with a discerning eye can see that the Duke of Jingguo will never agree to the marriage with the Earl of Cheng'an, so why should they do this? Yes, could it be that the two families have other plans? Ning Fan shook his head slightly, and said after a moment's pause, it seems that Li Shuning's return to Beijing this time is definitely not because of a mere verbal marriage. Lin Yong nodded in agreement. The eldest daughter of the Li family has a large army and holds an important position in the northern border. Without the special permission of His Majesty, she will never return to Beijing at this time. Ning Fan pondered for a while and said softly, if I am right, my father should summon me soon. The imperial edict has arrived. A loud shout came from outside the courtyard. Ning Fan's eyes condensed, and he raised his foot to walk towards the courtyard. Your Majesty has ordered that His Royal Highness Prince Xuanyang come to the palace immediately to see the Emperor. This is the order. Your son, I obey the order. Lin Yong, who was standing aside, looked at Ning Fan with awe. Somehow, his dandy prince seemed to have suddenly become wise and intelligent, and he was very calculating. Imperial study. Emperor Yu was lying on the dragon chair, calmly watching the man in black below. Your Majesty, I have already found out. The matter of Fengxiang Tower was caused by the second prince being bewitched by Lin Chong, the son of Prime Minister Lin, and several second-generation rich people. The drug was prepared by Lin Chong in advance, so it should have been premeditated. When Emperor Yu heard this, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and he asked gloomily, Lin Chuxi should not know about this, right? Your Majesty, it should be the idea of several juniors to use Prince Xuanyang to tarnish the reputation of the Li family girl in order to destroy the marriage between the Jingguo mansion and the Cheng'an Earl mansion. Ridiculous. Yu the Emperor laughed in anger, with a hint of sarcasm on his lips. So, the old fox of the Lin family is still unaware. I think he should know it now. Haha, in that case, I don't have to send someone to go there myself. Emperor Yu was relieved. Now that he has not appointed a crown prince, all the princes are ready to make a move, but they have no real power in their hands. At most, they are just making small moves. Everything is under his control, but if important officials of the court are involved, he will never allow it. Your Majesty, Li Shuning of the Jingguo mansion requests to see you. Announce. Emperor Yu seemed not surprised by Li Shuning's arrival. He sat up straight and saw a woman in armor and with a heroic face striding into the hall. General Li Shuning pays respect to His Majesty. My dear, please excuse me. Thank you, Your Majesty. There was a touch of admiration on Emperor Yu's face. Although Li Shuning was a woman, she was not inferior to men at all. In just 3 years, she had made a name for herself as the female General Shira in the northern border, shocking the 8 tribes of Mobei. It can be said that even without the title of Duke Jingguo, Li Shuning's influence in the army should not be underestimated. My dear, what is the matter with this audience? Your Majesty, I have come here to apologize. Oh, Emperor Yu looked at her in surprise. My dear, Li has made great military achievements for my great Yu, and I have not had time to reward you. What crime has he committed? Your Majesty, today, I bumped into His Royal Highness the King of Xuanyang, and privately led the army to besiege the prince's mansion. The crime is unforgivable. Please punish me, Your Majesty. Hearing Li Shuning's words, Emperor Yu showed a playful look on his face. In that case, why didn't Li Yan come here, but you came to ask for punishment? Your Majesty, as the eldest sister, I am willing to take the punishment for my brother because of my poor discipline. Ha ha ha. Emperor Yu laughed, waved his hand, and said softly, Lord Li, you are not here to ask for punishment, you are here to ask for punishment. I already know about the matter of Fengxiang Tower, and it is reasonable for Li Yan to stand up for you. I forgive her innocence. Girl, I will give you an explanation about the matter of Fengxiang Tower. You are the only female general of Deu, and you have made great military achievements for Deu. I will never let a meritorious official be bullied, even if it is my son. If you make a mistake, you must be punished. I have summoned King Xuanyang. Don't worry, I will never tolerate this matter. Li Shuning's face showed a complicated expression. He bowed slightly and kept silent. Your Majesty, His Royal Highness King Xuanyang has arrived. HMPH. Let this rebellious son roll in for me. Yes. After the eunuch bowed respectfully, he quickly left the hall. Not long after, Ning Fan walked in with a dragon-like step. After seeing a beautiful figure below, his face changed slightly. Son, I see you, father. Do you know why I asked you to come? Reporting to my father, I think it's because of the matter of Fengxiang Tower. Ning Fan glanced at Li Shuning next to him and responded silently. HMPH. Ning Fan, you are so bold. Emperor Yu was instantly furious, slammed the table and stood up, glaring, and scolded. General Li has made great military achievements for my great Yu, and has been through life and death outside. Now he has to be bullied by you after returning to Beijing. He deserves death. Come here, drag this rebellious son away and behead him. Your Majesty. The eunuch was so scared that his legs softened and he knelt on the ground, whispering, Your Majesty, you must not do this. Although the second prince has made mistakes, he is still of royal blood. Please have mercy, Your Majesty. Li Shuning looked at Emperor Yu's face and was also moved. Even though he knew that he was acting for him, the resentment in his heart was reduced a lot. Your Majesty, please take back your order. Li Shuning also stepped forward and bowed, and said in a serious tone, The second prince was confused for a moment, and I was not hurt. Please spare his life. So, you want me to pardon him? Li Shuning cursed shamelessly. She was a smart person. She knew that Emperor Yu was taking the opportunity to hit King Xuanyang and give her face. Even if she did not come forward to plead for mercy, the tiger-headed guillotine would not fall on Ning Fan's head. Now, she came forward to plead for mercy, which also gave the monarch enough face. But I didn't expect that he would take advantage of the situation and pardon him. I didn't ask you to chop off your son, nor did I say to let him go so easily. Father, I have something to say. When Ning Fan heard that Emperor Yu was going to chop off his head, his expression did not show the slightest panic. If he said that he was successful, his head might not be saved. But none of the drugs I had ever used were put to use, and I still have them in my pocket. Moreover, killing a current prince was not something Emperor Yu could do without a word. Someone from the clan would definitely come forward. Oh, what do you have to say? King Yu's eyes fell on Ning Fan, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. He was about to chop off his head, but this boy didn't show the slightest panic, and there wasn't even the slightest wave of emotion in his eyes. Something is wrong. Reporting to my father, I am guilty of what happened at Fengxiang Tower and I am willing to accept the punishment. However, there is another hidden meaning in this matter. I don't want to be used as a gunman, so please be aware of it. Ning Fan's attitude was very sincere, and his tone was unusually calm. No matter what, he couldn't deny the mistakes his predecessor had made. Instead of trying to defend him in every possible way, it would be better to admit his mistakes openly. After all, his predecessor's reputation in the capital had been completely ruined long ago, and everyone even shouted for him to be beaten. Now that I admit my mistake frankly, I feel a bit more candid. Oh, Emperor Yu looked extremely surprised, kept tapping the table with his knuckles, and said softly, What does it mean to be used as a weapon? Whose gun did you fall for? Whose trick did you fall into? You are the current prince and a first-grade county king. Who dares to plot against you? Emperor Yu already knew the ins and outs of the Fengxiang Tower incident, but he still wanted to hear what his silly son would say. Did he see through it, or was he just being mysterious? Replying to my father, I am the son of left Prime Minister Lin Chushi. The son of the Minister of Rights, Zheng En, together with several powerful men in the capital, instigated his sons and ministers to plot against General Li. That day, I was drinking and having fun in Fengxiang Tower. They came to my door. After some confusion, they offered me the drug they had prepared, trying to let my son slander General Li's reputation. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, Li Shuning on the side looked suspicious. I have no enmity with them, why would they do this? It's just that some people don't want to see the marriage between Cheng'enbo's mansion and Duke Jingguo's mansion. Father, I have already said what I want to say, let me do whatever you want. Emperor Yu looked at him deeply and said calmly, here comes someone. Exist. Drag this traitor down and beat him 30 times. As you command. Several large and thick guards strode over and led Ning Fan towards the outside of the hall. Li Shuning stood calmly in front of the hall, her face uncertain, and a stern look flashed in her beautiful eyes from time to time. My dear, do you know why I summoned you back to Beijing? Li Shuning was stunned for a moment, came to his senses, and shook his head slightly. I don't know, Your Majesty, please make it clear. Half a month ago, someone sent me a secret message telling me that the Duke of Jingguo was planning a mutiny in the northern border with the intention of raising troops to rebel. What? Li Shuning's expression suddenly changed, and he knelt down with a plop, and said in a deep voice, Your Majesty, please be aware that I, the Duke of Jingguo, from top to bottom, are loyal to Deu and to Your Majesty. If it weren't for Your Majesty's unbelief, I and my father would be willing to offer military symbols, resign and return home. Don't be anxious. Emperor Yu shook his head, smiled, and said softly, I know Duke Jing's loyalty better than anyone else. If he hadn't turned the tide and assisted me in ascending to the throne, I would not be the great Yu I am today. I called you here, firstly, to lure the snake out of its hole. I want to see who is secretly stirring up the storm. Secondly, I am afraid that someone is secretly plotting to alienate and shake the morale of the soldiers on the front line. Duke Jingguo is stationed in the northern border and cannot be moved lightly, so I can only recall you and inform you of this matter personally. Thirdly, there is still a hard job waiting to be given to you. After hearing Emperor Yu's words, Li Shuning looked a little calmer, cupped her hands slightly and said, Please give me Your Majesty's orders, I will do my best. Well, it's not a big deal. The Ministry of War has recently recruited 100,000 new soldiers. However, now all the veteran generals are far away at the border. It just so happens that you have returned to Beijing, so I will leave it to you to train the new army. Troop training. Li Shuning looked stunned, and soon understood Emperor Yu's intention. Now that the four borders are constantly fighting, and the frontline soldiers are raging, it is time for Emperor Yu to add fresh blood. But, what is the meaning of leaving this matter to yourself? A series of shrill screams came from outside the hall, and Li Shuning bowed respectfully, I obey your order. Someone is coming. Exist. Declaration. Promise. Li Shuning, the eldest daughter of the Duke of Jingguo, has made many military exploits since she led the army. She has used her body as a woman to protect our country and our mountains and rivers. I am deeply gratified. I have specially named her Princess Changning and given her thousands of pieces of brocade and a mansion. When Li Shuning heard this, he trembled all over, with a look of gratitude on his face, and immediately knelt down to thank him. My lord, thank you for your kindness. After Ning Fan suffered 30 blows, although his screams were extremely miserable, he was still able to jump around. It was obvious that his predecessor had already established a relationship with him, and Emperor Yu turned a blind eye. After waiting quietly outside the palace for half an hour, I saw a eunuch leading a beautiful figure out of the imperial study. He hadn't looked carefully just now, but now that Li Shuning was approaching, Ning Fan realized that this famous female general was clearly a gentle beauty. Wearing a plain long dress, with eyebrows like light smoke, skin as white as jade, and delicate facial features, she formed a face that was enough to charm the world. Her eyes were full of stars, with a bit of coldness that kept people away from her. There was a touch of heroic spirit between her eyebrows, which really made people intoxicated. Congratulations, Princess. Li Shuning was stunned. She had just received the imperial decree in the palace and was conferred a title. She didn't expect that Ning Fan, who had never stepped into the palace, already knew about it. He was really well informed. Your Highness is waiting for me. Yes. Ning Fan nodded slightly and chuckled, how about walking together? After hearing Ning Fan's remarks in the palace, Li Shuning was also full of curiosity about the notorious second prince. After a moment of consideration, she nodded and agreed. The two of them walked out of the palace. As soon as they walked out of the palace gate, they saw a black-faced strong man coming up to them. Li Shuning frowned slightly, stepped forward, and protected Ning Fan behind her. My lord, the black-faced man was Dian Wei. Without the special permission of Emperor Yu, even Ning Fan's guards could not enter the palace at will. Is he your man? Yes. Li Shuning looked at Ning Fan in surprise. This man had strong arms, thick calluses on his hands, and a strong murderous aura. He was obviously not an easy person to deal with. There was even a lot of blood on his hands. I thought he was a fierce general in the army, but he didn't expect him to be the attendant of King Xuanyang. May I know your name, warrior? My name is Dian Wei. Dian Wei didn't know who this woman was, but she was obviously of extraordinary status to be able to walk side by side with His Highness, so he grinned to show his goodwill. Dian, warrior, are you willing to develop in the army? I'll listen to your highness. Dian Wei looked at Ning Fan a little honestly and followed him silently. Princess, poaching my people in front of me is a bit unfair. Li Shuning met Ning Fan's resentful eyes and couldn't help but smile. For some reason, this fool had just plotted against her the day before, but now in front of him, she couldn't even feel the slightest hatred. We have heard that His Royal Highness King Xuanyang is a well-known dandy in the capital. He bullies men and dominates women, steals and robs, and does all sorts of evil. However, when we meet him today, it seems that His Highness is not as unbearable as the rumors say. As Li Shuning spoke, he observed Ning Fan's expression and saw that his expression was calm and showed no trace of shame. He then said, His Royal Highness just said in front of the Emperor that some people don't want to see my Duke Jingguo's mansion and Chang'anbo mansion. Marriage, why? Haha, the princess has been away at war all year round and doesn't know much about the affairs in the capital. Ning Fan expected that she would be unable to hold back, so when he mentioned this matter, he explained softly, Chang'anbo is a staunch supporter of the fourth brother. If the Duke of Jingguo and Chang'anbo get married, my fourth brother might not be able to sleep even in his sleep. I can wake up with a smile. Your Highness, you mean that marrying Chang'anbo is equivalent to supporting the fourth highness? Of course. Ning Fan looked at her out of the corner of his eye and said leisurely, perhaps the princess will not think so, but others will label the Duke of Jingguo as the fourth highness. HMPH. A sneer appeared on Li Shuning's face. When my father and Chang'anbo held a banquet to celebrate their success, they made a joke, but I didn't expect them to take it seriously. Chang'anbo is really getting better and better as he gets older. Now that his decision is undecided, he actually dares to take sides in advance. However, Lin Chong and others bewitched your highness. Who was the instigator? Who is behind them? Li Shuning frowned slightly, with a look of confusion on her face. She might be a little surprised if Chang'an's house was involved in the fight for the heir, but if the Prime Minister's house and the staff were also involved, things would be different. It's easy. Is it possible that His Majesty already has a candidate in mind? Princess should have forgotten that the eldest lady of Zuo Zhang's mansion is Princess Shang. The Ministry of Civil Affairs and the Prime Minister's office are in-laws again. However, this matter is probably not the idea of the two adults. It should be those idiots Lin Chong who made their own decisions without telling the family. A sneer appeared on Ning Fan's face. Now that the matter has reached Emperor Yu, I am afraid that the Left Chancellor and the Minister of Civil Affairs will not be able to sit still. I see. Li Shuning also had a look of surprise on his face, and then he took a serious look at Ning Fan. Is he really as ignorant and unscrupulous as the rumors say? The matter has been explained clearly, Princess. I have offended you many times before, so I will take my leave first. Ning Fan slightly bowed his hands to Li Shuning, then resigned and left. Now he still has a lot of things waiting to be done. The system has not yet been explored and understood, so the 13 deadly guns still need to be studied. How about your highness giving me a ride? Prince Xuanyang's palace and my Duke Jingguo's palace happen to be on the way. Li Shuning did not wait for Ning Fan to agree, but she got into the carriage of Prince Xuanyang's palace. A look of surprise appeared on the latter's face. The dignified eldest daughter of Duke Jing, the Princess of Changning, was actually willing to be with a big playboy like herself. Riding in the same carriage is also unusual. Let's go. Ning Fan had a look of helplessness on his face, said hello to Dian Wei, and got into the carriage. The carriage was spacious enough, and the two of them sat on opposite sides, without feeling crowded at all. Li Shuning didn't seem nervous. After all, in his eyes, the young man in front of him did not seem to be a threat to him. Princess, I wonder why you returned to Beijing this time. Didn't your highness hear that? It's naturally because of the verbal promise made by my father back then. Haha, princess, please don't fool me. Without His Majesty's special move, how can the border guard generals return to the capital easily? As expected, I can't hide it from your highness. Recently, the imperial court is recruiting new soldiers. Your Majesty specially summoned me to train the new soldiers. Troop training. A look of surprise appeared on Ning Fan's face, and he was about to ask when he heard a system prompt sound in his mind. Release system task. Troop training 1. Task time limit. 7 days. Task requirements. Within 7 days, convince Emperor Yu to obtain the right to train troops. Task reward. General outline of recruit training, 1 unit summoning card, 500 merit points. Hearing the sudden system prompt, Ning Fan frowned slightly, not expecting that the system task would be triggered. And it's also a military training mission. He had always ignored government affairs, and his reputation as a playboy had already spread throughout the capital. Now if he came forward to request military training, what would Emperor Yu think? When will the princess go to the barracks? The morning after tomorrow. Li Shuning saw the change in Ning Fan's expression, and there was a hint of doubt on his face. Why, is it possible that His Highness is also planning to go to the military camp to exercise? As soon as Li Shuning finished speaking, Ning Fan's eyes suddenly lit up. Now the chief trainer of the recruits was in front of him. If he could convince her, or even speak to Emperor Yu, things would be easier. Princess, I am very interested in the art of military training. I will visit your mansion tomorrow and ask for advice in person. Oh, Li Shuning didn't know what the gourd was selling, so she looked at him suspiciously but didn't refuse. Soon, the carriage arrived in front of Duke Jingguo's mansion. Ning Fan's attitude was very polite, and he said softly, Princess, go slowly, the king will come to visit tomorrow. Okay, I will wait for His Highness to come in person tomorrow. After saying that, he stepped into Duke Jing's mansion. Ning Fan returned to the mansion and plunged into the study. This shocked Lin Yang. The study of Prince Xuanyang's mansion had never been entered since the prince moved in. Half a step in. I actually entered the study today, and it was so weird. After Ning Fan locked himself in the study, he showed a pensive look. He had never been a soldier in his previous life, but he had heard a little about some training methods in the future. Although he didn't understand how soldiers were trained in this era, he copied several common bodybuilding methods from the future, which was enough to shock Li Shuning. He worked for nearly an hour and wrote more than 1,000 words. Although the handwriting was very ugly, the content could be barely read. Come here, the old slave is here. Hearing the call of his master, Lin Yang strode in. Seeing the ink marks on the table and the ink fragrance in the room, his expression froze. Was His Highness practicing calligraphy just now? What are you standing there for? Come and copy this document for me. The handwriting must be neat. I have to see the emperor. Yes, Lin Yang was curious and took a look. His pupils shrank immediately. The method of training soldiers. Your Highness, what are you doing? Don't worry about it. Give it to me before dawn tomorrow. The content on it must not be leaked. Yes, don't worry, Your Highness. Seeing that his own prince had entered the palace and actually started to do business, Lin Yang was also unambiguous. With Ning Fan's permission, he copied it directly in his study. It was only 1,000 words, and the skills could be copied in a cup of tea, but because Ning Fan's calligraphy was so wonderful, Lin Yang had to copy it for half an hour, and even had to ask him for advice from time to time. After copying, Ning Fan carefully scanned it. He had to say that Lin's handwriting was still good. Although it was not as good as that of a master, it was still eye-catching, at least for him. Not bad. Everything depends on tomorrow. According to the system rules, 100 merit points can summon a first-class hero, 500 merit points can summon a top hero, and as for the peerless hero, 1,000 merit points are required. Therefore, this task issued by the system can be said to have a very generous reward and the difficulty is not high. System, what is the use of the unit summoning card? Master, the unit summoning card can summon special units in Chinese history and even in the novels. Hiss. Ning Fan's eyes instantly became extremely hot. So, the great Qin Rushi, Wei Wuzu, the tiger and leopard cavalry of the Three Kingdoms period, the Shenzhen camp, and even the Chihuo army of the Jin dynasty that shocked the nations. The White Horse Volunteers, the Beiwei Army, the White Robe Army, etc. can all be summoned through the unit card. Not only the special units in history, but even some units in novels can be summoned. Great. Although he has not yet received the mission reward, Ning Fan is determined to win this mission. No matter what, he must get the right to train soldiers. Perhaps, I should think of a way to get my father to let me out. Now in this capital, many things cannot be done. If I can go out and accumulate strength, even if the throne cannot be passed on to me, I can still take it down. But it may not be easy to let him out. Ning Fan knew that his special bloodline was destined not to let him leave the sight of Emperor Yu, at least not before the position of the crown prince was decided. After thinking for a long time, Ning Fan locked himself in the study and waved his pen on the paper. Papermaking, movable type printing, purification of refined salt, winemaking, steel pouring method, glass manufacturing method, cement manufacturing method, brick cellar, curved plow. I wonder if there are artifacts such as horseshoes and stirrups that are essential for time travelers in this world. Remember to pay attention to them tomorrow. Ning Fan put a question mark behind the horseshoe and continued to think. As a reborn with a system, he wanted to reflect his own value as much as possible, at least in some aspects. He should try to get rid of his dependence on the system. But after he wrote a full page, he found that it seemed that except for movable type printing and the method of purifying refined salt, he knew nothing about other things. I read too many brainless novels in my previous life. I really thought that I could make these things just by knowing the names. I have never been involved in these industries. Although I know some principles, it is not so easy to really make them. It seems that I have to rely on the system daddy. It was not until late at night that Ning Fan carefully put away the full papers, wrapped them with a belly band from his childhood, and put them in what he thought was the most secret place. Feeling a deep sense of fatigue, he stretched out his hand and yawned. He felt dizzy and tinnitus, and found that there were already fine beads of sweat on his palms, dry mouth, and sore waist and knees. This symptom seems a bit like kidney deficiency. This body is really weak, and the body is the foundation of revolution. Let's start the counterattack by strengthening the body. Ning Fan wiped away the sleepiness on his face, took out the gun manual of the 13 deadly guns from the system space, and showed a touch of expectation on his face. According to the system, if it is refined to perfection, it can sweep through the army. Whether it was his previous life or his predecessor, he had longed for the battlefield since he was a child, and fantasized that one day he would be able to wear armor, hold a spear, and walk on the battlefield, taking the enemy's head among thousands of troops. Now that he has lived a new life, this once extremely distant dream does not seem to be out of reach. Moreover, if Ning Fan wants to go to that position, it is inevitable to fight on the battlefield. After opening the gun manual, Ning Fan looked at the dense small words on the first page and was speechless. A gun manual actually has the author's preface. I was born in a heavy snow, and I have been fighting only to survive since I was a child. People have 7 emotions and 6 desires. When 13 emotions are added together, I understand my gun intention. Looking at the dense small words, Ning Fan felt a headache, and silently turned over the preface, and saw the first page of the gun manual, which was actually a color page version. The exquisite illustrations and detailed text explanations explained the first style of the gun clearly. Is it that simple? Ning Fan looked at the pictures in the spear manual, his eyes sparkling with excitement, and he wanted to get up from the bed right now and find a spear to wield. Early the next morning, Ning Fan got up early, which surprised Lin Yong and other servants. According to the past, the second master would not get out of bed until the sun was high in the sky. Your Highness, what are you doing today? Go, call Dian Wei to me. Yes. Ning Fan stretched his muscles and did a set of radio gymnastics in the courtyard. He ordered the guards in the mansion to fetch a spear, and began to practice one move at a time according to the description of the spear manual. Hiss. Ning Fan just started to perform a few simple moves, and his body was already wet with sweat. The first move was called Acacia, and there were a total of 79 moves. Only by completing these 49 moves completely, only by mastering it and being able to use it randomly to form ever-changing trends, can you achieve success. Your Highness, what are you doing? My lord. Lin Yong came with Dian Wei and saw that His Highness was waving a spear back and forth in the courtyard. As if he was in a deserted place, he suddenly became frightened and hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. Master, please rest, but don't get hurt. Get off. Now that Ning Fan was practicing vigorously, how could he listen to the advice? He swung his spear and stabbed it out again, making a rustling sound when it rubbed against the air. Dian Wei, who was on the side, saw Ning Fan's spear moves, his eyes lit up, and he reminded softly, "My lord, your spear technique is too profound. With your current physical strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to master it." Upon hearing Dian Wei's reminder, Ning Fan was like a deflated balloon. His whole body was deflated, as if all his strength had been exhausted. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and threw the spear aside. When evil comes, is there any way to strengthen your body? A look of embarrassment appeared on Dian Wei's face. He scratched his head and said with a smile, "My lord, your physique is built through practice, it's not something you can achieve in a day." When Ning Fan heard this, he was silent for a moment. Now, he is probably not as strong as a normal person, let alone a martial artist. However, he is not discouraged. Practicing Kung Fu is not something that can be done overnight. He is determined to persevere. He picked up the spear again and followed the path in memory. However, the speed was several times slower than before. Dian Wei and others watched silently and did not try to persuade him. Lin Yong looked at the slightly thin figure with some distress. He didn't know what stimulated the prince. He seemed to have changed in the past 2 days. "Dong, we have detected that our master is in a martial arts training dilemma, so we have activated the martial arts auxiliary function." A system prompt sounded suddenly, causing Ning Fan to freeze, and another prompt sounded in his mind. You gain insights by practicing the 13 deadly spears, and your experience value +1. Experience. Ning Fan's eyes showed a hint of surprise, and he saw a light curtain appear in his mind, and a piece of data was displayed on the page. 13 deadly guns. Getting started 21. 100. System, what does this mean? Master, the martial arts auxiliary function can assist you in practicing martial arts. Every time you practice, you will get corresponding experience points. Once the experience points are full, you can upgrade your stunt level. There are 5 levels: beginner, little success, dacheng, grandmaster, and perfection. In other words, I won't encounter any bottlenecks in practicing martial arts. Once I reach the experience level, I can master the marksmanship skills. Exactly. When Ning Fan heard this, he immediately looked overjoyed. Originally, he was going to ask several marksman masters to teach him, but he didn't expect that the system would directly give him a hang-up to assist him in practicing. Come again. For a moment, Ning Fan's body seemed to be filled with infinite power, and he practiced the first move of the 13 deadly spears over and over again. You have practiced the first style of 13 deadly spears once, and your experience value +1. You have practiced the first style of 13 deadly spears once, and your experience value +2. You have practiced the first style of 13 deadly spears once, and your experience value +2. As the prompts sounded, the values in the brackets also changed. For a full hour, Ning Fan did not stop for a moment. The clothes on his body were completely soaked with sweat, and even the arms holding the gun began to tremble slightly. But he still gritted his teeth and persisted. Second Master, please take a rest. Please, even gods can't bear to ruin your body like this. My lord, martial arts training should be done step by step, don't do it too hastily. Dian Wei was also admonishing from the side, with a look of appreciation on his face. Our lord is indeed a man who can do great things. Such perseverance is really terrifying. System, check the martial arts support page. 13 deadly guns. Entry level 26. 100. It seems that it will take at least 3 days for this first move to reach a small level of success. Now this body has reached its limit. As Dian Wei said, too much is never enough. I'm afraid that the fact that I was able to hold on for so long this time is thanks to the effect of that marrow cleansing and bone-breaking pill. Ning Fan slowly restrained his gun, his body swayed, and he almost fell to the ground. Lin Yong quickly stepped forward to help him, and said with concern on his face, "Second master, are you okay?" "It's okay, just rest for a while. Come here, prepare some tea and bring it to His Highness." Lin Yong helped Ning Fan into the lobby and gave instructions to his servants. "It is detected that the master has entered the path of martial arts. Do you want to scan the four-dimensional attributes of the host and open the personal page?" "Yes, scanning in progress, master, please wait." Name: Ning Fan. Identity: the second prince of the Dayu dynasty, King Xuanyang, the top dandy in King Yu's city, a high-quality customer of Fengxiang Tower. Strength: 39s. The combination of physical fitness and martial arts, the value for ordinary people is 50. Intelligence: 81s. The combined IQ of the predecessor is superimposed, barely reaching the level of second-rate talent. Command: 59s. Can command a group of less than 50 people. Politics: 61s. A victim in the court, a plaything in the hands of powerful officials. Magic weapon: none. Mount: none. Stunt skill: 13 deadly spears not yet started. Summoning heroes: Dian Wei. It has been detected that the owner is physically weak, and I will give you a gift package for recuperation. After reading his attributes page, Ning Fan couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. He had long expected that his four-dimensional attributes might be a bit exaggerated, but he never thought that they would be so exaggerated. In other words, my IQ is barely above the average level. It is because of my 2 lifetimes and the combination of my previous IQ that I can barely reach the second-rate level. However, the only consolation is that the system issued a big gift package for nursing care. System: open the gift package. Congratulations to the master. You have received a bottle of Lu Wei Dawang pills, a bottle of Cinnamorium Gujing pills, a bottle of Jingui Shenqi pills, and a bottle of Wuzi Yanzong pills. Congratulations, master, for obtaining an ancient body tempering prescription. Ning Fan was stunned when he saw the big gift package for nursing care issued by the system. Is this a big gift package for nursing care? It's clearly a kidney tonifying gift package. System: Lu Wei Dawang pills are for kidney yin deficiency, and Cinnamorium Gujing pills are for replenishing yang deficiency. Which medicine should I take? Return to the master. The system has detected that you have yin and yang deficiency, and the 2 medicines can be taken at the same time. Forehead: Ning Fan was speechless. He couldn't take enough of these things in his previous life. He didn't expect that he still couldn't get rid of these pills in his new life. System: what is the use of this ancient body tempering prescription? The ancient prescription for body tempering can be used to make a medicinal bath, which can relax the muscles and strengthen the bones, open the meridians and activate blood circulation. The master takes a medicinal bath after practicing martial arts every day, which is beneficial to strengthening the body and polishing the bones. Hiss. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly lit up. He really found a treasure this time. Unexpectedly, the system was so generous and directly rewarded an ancient body tempering formula. You know, the value of this ancient formula is no less than the martial arts secret book, or even more. Physique is the foundation of a martial artist. If the physique is too poor, like Ning Fan's, it will be difficult to practice martial arts even with superb skills. And the recipe in Ning Fan's hand can improve the root bone qualification of the warrior, and its value is self-evident. Ning Fan even worried that once the news of the recipe was leaked, it might cause a bloody storm, so he had to be cautious. Lin Yong, the old slave is here. Ning Fan called out immediately, and Lin Yong came up quickly with a cup of tea. What do you want, Your Highness? Take this recipe and send different people to different pharmacies to grab these medicinal materials. Remember, this recipe must not be leaked. Looking at Ning Fan's solemn expression, Lin Yong also nodded solemnly. Second master, I will do this personally, you can rest assured. Lin Yong came with his mother from the Great Zhou as a dowry. His loyalty is beyond doubt, and he is also very reliable. Ning Fan is very relieved to leave this matter to him. While resting, Ning Fan was not idle. He wrote the method of purifying refined salt on paper and was ready to hand it over to Lin Yong. Eli, here, prepare the carriage, let's go to the Jingguo mansion for a meal. Yes, Dian Wei responded respectfully. Ning Fan sat up from the bed, moved a little, and felt sore and achy in his limbs. However, in order to complete the system task, Ning Fan still dragged his tired body to the Jingguo mansion. Left Prime Minister's mansion. In the study, the young master of the Lin family was like a frightened quail, and he stood in front of Lin Chuxi, bowing his head and saying nothing. Idiot, are you so bold that you dare to plot against the second prince of the dynasty? Are you going to kill my Lin family? Lin Chuxi looked at his stupid son, shaking with anger, and pointed at his nose and cursed. Father, isn't he just a useless prince who doesn't get the emperor's favor? How dare you? Listening to Lin Chuxi's scolding, Lin Chong was a little disapproving, with a look of dissatisfaction on his face. This time he was not making trouble for no reason, but considering it from the perspective of His Royal Highness Prince Shang. You think you are very smart, and you treat others as fools. Isn't he a fool? Lin Chong muttered. I just mentioned it a few times, and that idiot went to drug others, but he was found out. Stupid. Lin Chuxi's face was full of disappointment. You treat His Royal Highness Xuanyang as a fool, but is Your Majesty also a fool? Do you think that without your obstruction, the Jingguo mansion would marry the Chang'an Marquis mansion? What kind of existence is the Jingguo Duke? He is the god of war of my Deu kingdom, who once the loyal minister who helped His Majesty ascend the throne. How could he let his daughter marry a small earl's son? Lin Chuxi looked disappointed. After venting his anger, his face gradually calmed down. He sighed sadly. As the prime minister of the current dynasty, countless eyes are watching my every move all the time. Now because of your self-righteousness, my prime minister's mansion is in great trouble. Father, is it that serious? Lin Chong seemed to be frightened. His face turned pale and a look of panic appeared on his face. Didn't he just plot against a useless prince? Besides, the matter was not done. But looking at his father's posture, it seemed as if the sky was about to fall. HMPH, if His Majesty gets suspicious and mistakenly thinks that my Shangfu has participated in the fight for the throne, my entire Lin family will face a catastrophe. Lin Chuxi sighed with regret, and said with regret, I work diligently and cautiously on weekdays, fearing that His Majesty will get suspicious. You are so good, you have offended both the Xuanyang Palace and the Jingguo Palace. Lin Chuxi looked at the rebellious son in front of him, wishing he could slap him back into his mother's belly. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard a knock on the door. Master, someone is coming from the palace. His Majesty asked you to enter the palace. Jingguo Palace. Li Shuning heard the news of Ning Fan's visit and came out to greet him in person. Li Yan looked at Dian Wei with hostility, snorted, and turned his head away. Princess, please forgive me for bothering you. What are you talking about? It is a great honor for my Jingguo mansion to have your visit. After some greetings, they walked into the mansion. They heard shouts of killing from afar. Before Ning Fan could ask, he heard Li Shuning explain, there is a martial arts training ground in my Jingguo mansion. Now the soldiers who followed me back to Beijing are training. Oh, Ning Fan showed a hint of surprise on his face, and said with a smile, can I go and see? Your Highness is also interested in the martial arts. Ha ha ha, I am not only interested, but also look forward to killing enemies on the battlefield one day, holding a 3-foot sword to perform unparalleled merits, and expanding the territory for my Deu. This is how a man shows his true colors. Hearing Ning Fan's lofty words, Li Shuning showed a hint of surprise on his face. He didn't expect that the recognized #1 playboy in the capital could say such a thing. Li Yan sneered. With your physique, I'm afraid you can't even sit on a warhorse, and you can't kill the enemy on the battlefield. Yunur, don't be rude. Li Shuning quickly scolded Li Yan and turned to apologize to Ning Fan. Dian Wei also looked at Li Yan silently, raised his fist, and looked at him with a warning look. The latter shrank his head and looked at Dian Wei with fear. Ha ha, what the young master said is right. With my weak body now, I am afraid I can't even lift the sword. However, fighting on the battlefield has never relied on the courage of a man, but on planning, deploying troops, and taking the overall situation into consideration. Oh, Li Yan showed a hint of sarcasm on his face. From what your Highness said, it seems that you have some insights on commanding troops. I have only read a few books, so it can't be called insights. I would like to hear more about it. Warfare is the art of deception. The art of using troops lies in ever-changing and unexpected situations. How can it be summarized in a few words? Ning Fan shook his head slightly, revealing an unfathomable smile, and the group also came to the martial arts training ground of the Jingguo mansion. Hundreds of men in armor were practicing fighting skills. Seeing Li Shuning, two burly men strode forward and saluted. Meet the general. Li Shuning nodded slightly, asked them to stand up, looked at Ning Fan on the side, and chuckled. Your Highness, these men are the elite of my Chengning army, and these two are my generals, Ku Yang and Zhang Jun. You two, come forward to greet His Highness King Xuanyang. King Xuanyang. Both of them were startled, their eyes fell on Ning Fan, and a hint of anger appeared in an instant. General, is it this kid who used those despicable means? How dare you? Dian Wei heard the two people's rude words, took a step forward, glared at them. How dare you, you brats, be rude to my master? Who are you? Humph, I am Dian Wei, the master's guard. It turns out to be this dude's lackey. Dian Wei's face was instantly furious, waving his iron fist and rushing towards the two people. Ku Yang was not to be outdone. He took a step and punched out, going straight up to meet them. With a muffled sound, Dian Wei's face showed a touch of surprise, while Ku Yang retreated repeatedly, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. Seeing this, Zhang Jun also rushed forward to help. The three of them fought back and forth, fists and palms intersected, and they fought in a group. Li Shuning and Ning Fan did not dissuade anyone, but stood quietly by the side, watching coldly. Ha ha ha, Dian Wei is going to suffer. Fu Qi and Zhang Jun are among the best in our Zanbei army. In my opinion, Dian Wei can hardly survive under the hands of these two. Li Yan showed a sense of pleasure of revenge on his face. He accidentally glanced at his sister's cold eyes, and his smile froze instantly. He stepped forward and lowered his head. Sister. Your idea. Sister, I don't want them to vent your anger for you. Li Shuning stopped talking and looked at the battle circle. Dian Wei suppressed the two generals of the Zanbei army with his iron fists, and Ku Yang and the others were already defeated. How is this possible? Li Yan watched Ku Yang being knocked away by Dian Wei's punch, and he stood up again, holding his chest. Zhang Jun was also kicked hard, his face turned pale, and he was about to attack again. Enough. Li Shuning's pretty face was as cold as ice. She said in a low voice, Ku Yang, Zhang Jun, Li Yan, you have disregarded military regulations and committed crimes. You will each be punished with 50 lashes and demoted 3 ranks. Your Highness, I was not strict with my subordinates and did not mean to offend them. Please punish me. Looking at Li Shuning's sincere face, Ning Fan knew that this play should be planned by Li Yan. He nodded slightly and said, the princess has punished them. What crime have they committed? Your Highness, how about going in for a chat? That's what I meant. Ning Fan nodded with a smile, looked at Dian Wei on the side, and said softly, Eli, you wait here, and don't conflict with others again. Yes, Your Highness. After giving instructions, Ning Fan followed Li Shuning into the main hall. After the host and the guest sat down, 2 young maids served tea. I wonder why Your Highness is visiting today. Li Shuning got straight to the point. Ning Fan smiled and said, didn't I say yesterday that I want to ask the princess for some training methods? Are you serious, Your Highness? Of course. A strange luster flashed in Li Shuning's eyes. Could it be that this big playboy wants to seize the position of prince? Seeing Li Shuning's face full of hesitation, Ning Fan took out the method of training soldiers that he had prepared long ago from the cloth bag in his sleeve and handed it to him. This is my experience in training new soldiers. Please teach me, princess. Oh, Li Shuning was really shocked this time. She didn't expect Ning Fan to come prepared this time. However, she also had a little curiosity. What kind of training method could this big playboy who was famous in the capital come up with? After opening it, Li Shuning's eyes lit up. She didn't expect that this playboy had such attainments in calligraphy. However, as she went deeper, a serious look appeared on her face. Your Highness, did you write this yourself? Yes. Ning Fan nodded with a serious face and chuckled. Don't worry, princess, you are the first person to see this method of training soldiers. I wonder what you have to say. Hiss. Li Shuning looked at Ning Fan with shock. She had never thought that this notorious and useless second prince would have such attainments in military tactics. I'm afraid no one can imagine how valuable the training methods recorded on these pages of paper are. She has even never heard of some novel ideas. However, she dared to say that every method recorded on it is indeed effective. This is her intuition after many years of military service. Once, she relied on this intuition to win one victory after another. So, Li Shuning firmly believed in the training methods recorded on this piece of paper. Someone come. Yes. Go. Call Li Yan over to me. Yes. Li Shuning said to Ning Fan on the side. Your Highness, I'll let Yaner try these moves. Hee, the young master just got hit with a stick, I'm afraid he can't move at this moment. Ah, Li Shuning just remembered that she had just ordered someone to hit him with 50 sticks, and looked at Ning Fan in embarrassment. Now there were only the two of them present, and this training method was particularly important. Let's go to the martial arts training ground and let the soldiers try it. After all, if it is really effective, even if it is a new method, it will be seen sooner or later. Yes, the two walked side by side towards the martial arts training ground. Li Shuning suddenly stopped and looked at Ning Fan, whispering, Your Highness, is this for the position of prince? Prince? Ning Fan was stunned for a moment. He really hadn't thought of this. According to Dao's decree, all princes must be crowned as kings when they are 16 years old, and if they want to be crowned as princes, they must have military merits. Looking at the entire Dao, the current prince, in addition to the two uncles, is the cheap brother, King Sheng. Now, although Dao's crown prince has not been established, almost all the civil and military officials in the court know that the position of the prince has already been decided, and it is the eldest son of the emperor, Ning Chen. Ning Chen has been crowned with the halo of a genius since he was young. He knew 1,000 words at the age of 3, could write poems at the age of 6, and began to take over the government at the age of 9, assisting Emperor Yu in reviewing memorials. Later, because of his radical ideas, he had a disagreement with Emperor Yu and was sent to the military camp at the age of 16. I thought that this eldest son of the emperor who had been crowned with the halo of a genius since childhood would be lost in the crowd and lose the emperor's favor. Who would have thought that in just 5 years, he would kill a name of a god of war in the Western Territory? Now he has just passed the age of 21, with 100,000 troops, intimidating the Western Territory and defeating Dian, the strongest country in the Central Plains. From time to time, there are good news in Beijing, and Emperor Yu favors him extremely, but due to the differences in their political views, the position of the prince has been shelved. And Ning Fan's predecessor had a good relationship with this half-brother, or in other words, the eldest brother was good to every emperor's younger brother and sister. He has been given many halos since he was a child, but he has never been arrogant. Ning Fan had been a naughty boy since he was young, and even several times it was this eldest brother who stood up to take the blame for him. Therefore, in the impression of the previous life, he was close to this eldest brother with a bit of awe. Your Highness. Seeing Ning Fan standing there with a dazed look on his face, Li Shuning called him softly, and the latter came back to his senses and smiled apologetically. For some reason, seeing Ning Fan's elegant temperament and gentle words and deeds, which were completely inconsistent with the rumored big playboy, Li Shuning also became very curious about the big playboy's personality. Princess, a small training method can't be exchanged for the position of prince. Besides, my background is destined that I will not be favored by my father. Today, I present the training method to exchange for the right to train from my father. Right to train. Li Shuning's face condensed, and a touch of solemnity appeared on his face. Could it be that King Xuanyang wanted to get involved in military power? Princess, please don't misunderstand. I just want to obtain the right to train soldiers, or to participate in the training of new soldiers, to personally verify this training method. To be honest, the training method in the hands of the princess is not perfect, or it is just a castrated version, which is far from what I imagined. Only after verification, I will know whether this training method is feasible or not. Hearing Ning Fan's explanation, Li Shuning's eyes flashed with a deep surprise. The training method in his hand was just a castrated version. You know, even this so-called castrated version is enough to improve the combat effectiveness of Dao's soldiers by 1 or 2 levels. If it is a complete version of the training method, how terrifying it would be. Imperial Palace. After beating Lin Chushi, Emperor Yu showed a satisfied smile. This time, the old man was obviously frightened, and made a lot of concessions, and even took the initiative to retire and return home. Although retiring and returning home was impossible, Emperor Yu also took this opportunity to take back a lot of power. Now the position of the right prime minister is vacant, and the left prime minister's mansion is the only one in power, which is quite prestigious among the scholars and even has 100 responses. This has to make Emperor Yu secretly alert. Fortunately, the old fox Lin Chushi is also a person who knows how to advance and retreat. He guessed Emperor Yu's thoughts and took the initiative to give up power. The old fox Lin was relieved, and Emperor Yu benefited. For a while, the monarch and his ministers were in harmony and happy. Your Majesty, Princess Changning and His Royal Highness Xuanyang King ask for an audience. Emperor Yu showed a deep surprise on his face. Why are they here? Lin Chushi was also shocked. Could it be that the Jingguo mansion saw through the rebellious son's plan and brought Xuanyang King to complain? Call them in. Chapter 11. Zan, King Xuanyang, Princess Changning has an audience. A chamberlain shouted softly, and the two of them walked side by side into the main hall. When they saw a thin old man with great temples standing beside them, they couldn't help but look startled. My son, please see my father. See your Majesty. After the two greeted each other, the thin old man slightly arched his hands towards Ning Fan and said, I have met His Highness King Zan Yang. Ning Fan nodded slightly as a greeting, and Emperor Yu, who was sitting on top, was very curious. This boy would never take the initiative to enter the palace without being summoned by him, but now he actually came to the door, together with Princess Changning. Could it be that it's about Fengxiang Tower? Ning Fan, Shu Ning, why do you two want to see me? Reporting to your Majesty, His Highness King Zan Yang has researched a new military training method. After testing it with someone in the palace, it was confirmed that it is effective. If His Highness's military training method is followed, the combat effectiveness of our Dayu soldiers can be increased by 20%. What did you say? Emperor Yu's expression instantly became much more solemn. Lin Chushi on the side also looked shocked and looked at Li Shuning in surprise. Princess, this matter is very important, so you can't be joking. Father. Ning Fan slightly cupped his hands, took out the military training method that he had already prepared from his sleeve, and said softly, this is the specific method written by my son, please take a look at it. The old eunuch on the side stepped forward to take the thick stack of paper and presented it to him. Emperor Yu did not open it in a hurry, but instead cast his eyes on Ning Fan. Second brother, you have never even been to a military camp since you were a child. When did you learn to train soldiers? Reporting to my father, although I have never been to the military camp, I often listen to the storyteller in the theater telling about the battlefield. After going back and forth, I took the guards at the house to study it. Theater, Mr. Storyteller. Emperor Yu's face instantly darkened, and he said angrily, okay, today I want to see what novel method you have that can actually get the princess to endorse you. As he spoke, he slowly spread out the paper presented by Ning Fan and glanced at it casually. His eyes lit up and a look of surprise appeared on his face. With just these few sticks and these few movements, can we train the soldiers' physical strength? Interesting. Princess, are you sure that this method of military training is more practical than the current method of military training that I, Dayu, have? Report to your Majesty, Li Shuning said with determination. Before coming, I have ordered the soldiers under my command to verify it, and it is indeed effective. Furthermore, according to His Highness, this military training method is not perfect yet, and he has not implemented some ideas yet. Oh, Emperor Yu glanced at Ning Fan in surprise, and said with a smile, second brother, is what the princess said true? Return to my father. Ning Fan slightly cupped his hands and said, I have never led a soldier, let alone participated in the training of soldiers. Therefore, some ideas have not been implemented. The military training method in your hands is the same as what I imagined. There is indeed a big gap. Emperor Yu's eyes couldn't help but become more playful. He also found that his silly son seemed to be a little different from before. His temperament was not as out of the box as before, and there was no fear in his eyes. Your Majesty, I am here to ask Your Majesty to allow King Zan Yang to participate in the training of new soldiers and give him the right to train soldiers. I want to formally test it in the army to see if the military training method created by His Highness is feasible. After hearing Li Shuning's words, Emperor Yu's face was calm, his eyes were even more unwavering, and he said softly, is this what you mean, or what the second brother means? Father, I mean this as a son. Oh, Emperor Yu's expression gradually became playful. What, why don't you go to Gulan to listen to music? Go. Ning Fan didn't think twice and answered directly. However, seeing a hint of anger on Emperor Yu's face, he quickly added, however, I also want to share my father's worries. As the saying goes, the rise and fall of the country, it's everyone's responsibility. My son is the prince of a country. He receives the salary from the court and is supported by the people. Naturally, he also wants to contribute to the country, serve the court, and benefit the people. Only in this way can he live up to his father's expectations. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the hall, including the old eunuch beside Emperor Yu, had dull expressions and fell silent. Does this sound like what the second child can say? The biggest dandy in the capital wants to benefit the people and serve the court. The most ridiculous thing in the world. Fate of the nation, everyone is responsible. This statement makes perfect sense. Today the sun comes out in the west, and our silly son has grown up. Emperor Yu showed a rare smile and said softly, it's rare that you can think of doing something serious when you grow so big, I'm sure. When Ning Fan heard what Emperor Yu said, his face suddenly showed a look of surprise, but when he heard his next sentence, his head was filled with black lines. As long as you don't make trouble for the people of the capital, I'll let you do whatever you want. My son, thank you very much, father. Thank you, your majesty. Both of them bowed respectfully. Ning Fan heard the system prompts in his mind, and the smile on his face became a little thicker. Father, I will take my leave first. Well, go ahead. Xu Ning, watch him for me. If King Zanyang dares to step into the land of fireworks again, I will allow you to engage in military law. According to the order, Li Shuning looked at the dandy on the side, raised his fist, and said with an innocent look, I am following orders, please don't blame me. Father, Ning Fan, who was about to leave, suddenly stopped, turned around, looked at Emperor Yu on the dragon throne, and showed a mean smile. There are some new top names in Fengxiang Tower. Their figures and singing skills are simply unparalleled. If you don't have time to spare, let's go shopping together. As soon as these words came out, the imperial study fell into an eerie silence again. Lin Chuxi looked stunned for a moment, then lowered his head and suppressed a smile, while Li Shuning carefully observed Emperor Yu's face. Treason. Emperor Yu suddenly became furious, grabbed the bamboo inkstone on the desk and threw it at Ning Fan, shouting, I'll beat you to death, you useless thing. Ah, father, I am just kidding. Just kidding. Seeing that Emperor Yu had no regard for the emperor's majesty and rushed towards him like a wolf or a tiger, Ning Fan ran away and hid while saying, Father, I am wrong. Here comes someone, stop him. Ah, hey, it hurts. Don't slap me in the face, father. After Ning Fan was beaten by Emperor Yu himself, he looked like a defeated rooster and said dejectedly, if you don't want to go, I won't go. Why do you beat someone? After all, he is the king of a country, but he only has so much ambition. My son understands that you have been working hard all day long and wants to take you out to relax. My filial piety can be learned from heaven and earth, as well as from the sun and the moon. Why don't you appreciate it? Seeing that Emperor Yu's breath became urgent again, Ning Fan quickly bowed his hands and said, I'll take my leave first. Get out of here. Following Emperor Yu's roar, Ning Fan walked out of the hall in despair. Lin Chuxi observed Emperor Yu's color, slightly cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, calm down. Your Highness just has a naughty personality. Snort. Emperor Yu sat on the dragon chair, looking at the departing figure, the anger on his face completely disappeared, and murmured, No one has ever dared to arrange me like this. This kid used to be submissive in front of me. Why do you dare to be so presumptuous today? The top card of Fengxiang Tower. A hint of curiosity flashed in Emperor Yu's eyes, and he looked at Lin Chuxi on the side. Shang Lin, the number 1 card of Fengxiang Tower is really what the second brother said. Ahem, you're really ruthless. I should have known better than to be so naughty. I got beaten up for nothing. But the system task is completed. Ning Fan showed a hint of anticipation on his face. He opened the system and checked the task page. Congratulations to the master for completing the task and training soldiers. Congratulations to the master for obtaining the general outline of recruit training, a soldier summoning card, and 500 merit points. Congratulations to the master for completing the system task for the first time and receiving an incentive package. According to the system evaluation, the task is rated A and you will receive an advanced lottery. As soon as he opened the system, a series of prompts sounded, and Ning Fan showed a look of surprise on his face. He didn't expect that there would be an unexpected surprise. System, open the incentive package. Congratulations, Master, you have obtained a special summon card, Ancient Wine Brewing Technology, Refined Salt Purification Method. Special summon card. Ning Fan's face showed a touch of surprise. What is the use of this special summon card? Just as he was about to ask, he heard the system explain. Special summon card can summon special talents in the history of the past life. Special talents, for example, Zhang Zongjing, Li Shijun, Lu Ban, Ni Zhang, Yao Li, etc. So that's it. Ning Fan's face showed a touch of realization, and he immediately stepped onto the carriage and plunged into the carriage. Go back home. Dian Wei drove the carriage away, while Ning Fan sat in the carriage with an expectant look on his face, and sent a message with his mind. System, use the special summon card. Congratulations, Master, for obtaining the richest man in the Ming Dynasty, Shen Wanson. Shen Wanson. Ning Fan hesitated for a moment, and the information about this person appeared in his mind. This guy was a real business genius who was rich enough to rival a country. He even built half of Nanjing City by himself. Although it was suspected of exaggeration, it also confirmed that this person was very rich. Unfortunately, people wanted to be arrogant when they had money. This guy actually wanted to reward the 3 armies for Zhu Yuanzhang, which touched Zhu Yuanzhang's reverse scale and was exiled to the border. It must be said that this person was full of myths, and folk rumors were widely circulated. Now that Ning Fan was about to build a business empire, the system sent him such a business genius. It can be said that he was like a fish in water. He was originally going to let Lin Yang come down in person, but now, the appearance of Shen Wanson gave him a better choice. System, check Shen Wanson's attribute page. Name, Shen Wanson. Dynasty, Early Ming. Loyalty, diehard. Military strength, 67. Intelligence, 92. Leadership, 73. Politics, 55. Special attributes, cornucopia, a treasure bowl of money, which has a terrifying ability to attract money in the business world. After seeing Shen Wanson's special attributes, Ning Fan's eyes were full of brilliance. Shen Wanson's value is not inferior to that of a peerless general. Where is Shen Wanson now? Master, Shen Wanson is already waiting in front of the palace. Ning Fan nodded slightly and whispered, System, what's going on with this advanced lottery? Every time the master completes a task, the system will evaluate the task completion, which is divided into 4 levels, S, A, B, and C, corresponding to 4 different levels of lottery rewards. So that's it. Use advanced lottery. Please wait. Ning Fan watched a golden roulette suddenly appear on the light screen. Dozens of different items appeared on the golden roulette, shining brightly, and a huge pointer began to rotate. Stop. With Ning Fan's order, the pointer on the turntable also stopped, and finally landed in a golden space, followed by a prompt sound. Congratulations, Master, you have obtained Master Level Calligraphy Full. A prompt sounded, and Ning Fan felt dizzy, and a vast amount of calligraphy knowledge was added. All kinds of calligraphy fonts such as Slender Gold, Feibai, Cursive, Official Script, and Running Script were deeply imprinted in his mind. It's a skill-based reward. Ning Fan's face showed a touch of surprise. In just such a short moment, he actually became a master of calligraphy in all kinds of fonts. Interesting. The master will become an emperor in the future. Whether it is governing the country or playing chess, calligraphy and painting, he must be proficient. The palace is only 2/4 of an hour away from the Xuanyang Palace. As soon as he arrived in front of the palace, he saw a middle-aged man with a big belly and a rich face standing in front of the palace. After the carriage stopped, Ning Fan strode out. The middle-aged man saw Ning Fan's figure and hurriedly stepped forward to salute respectfully. Shen Wanson, meet your highness. No need to be polite. Ning Fan carefully examined the fat man in front of him. He exuded a unique shrewdness that belonged to a businessman. His eyes were shining and full of confidence. Let's go in and talk. Ning Fan didn't bother to use the troop summoning card, so he pulled Shen Wanson towards the mansion. No matter in what era, it is impossible to live without money, and Shen Wanson is his future god of wealth. Seeing his own prince personally leading this middle-aged man into the mansion, the servants passing by also showed a touch of surprise. It seems that there will be another nobleman in the mansion in the future. The two sat down in the pavilion, and Ning Fan pondered and said, Wanson, I asked the housekeeper to give all the gold and silver in the mansion to you. Within half a month, open a business for me. Can you do it? Your Highness, I wonder how much gold and silver there is in the mansion. Ning Fan was stunned and wiped his nose awkwardly. He really didn't know how much money there was in the mansion. This matter has always been managed by Lin Yang. Your Highness, you are back. Speaking of the devil appeared. Lin Yang strode over and bowed respectfully. Uncle Lin, you came just in time. I want to ask you, how much silver is in my mansion now? Silver. When it comes to money, Lin Yang's face showed a trace of embarrassment, and he said softly, Your Highness, less than 1,000 taels of gold. Why is it so little? Your Highness, since the end of this year, you have rewarded no less than 10,000 taels of gold in Fengxiang Tower. If it weren't for the few shops in our mansion, I'm afraid we can't even support the servants. Ning Fan was speechless for a moment, but fortunately there are still a few shops. He immediately looked at Lin Yang. Uncle Lin, how much can these shops be worth? These shops were given by the Queen Mother. Your Highness, you must not do anything reckless. Don't talk nonsense. How much can they be worth? The shops in our mansion are all in prosperous areas, at least they can be worth 10,000 taels of gold. Your Highness, since there are ready-made shops, there is no need to pawn them, just let your subordinates take over directly. When Lin Yang heard the tone of this person, his face suddenly froze. He was a stranger, and he came up to ask for the shops in the palace. Could he be a liar? Wanson, there's no rush for the shop. I have a few wine recipes. Find a few craftsmen in the mansion and brew the wine for me first. Wine recipe. Yes, don't underestimate these wine recipes. Within a year, they can make us the richest in the world. Hiss. Lin Yang took a breath of cold air, while Shen Wanson's eyes were shining with brilliance. He took the wine recipe with a serious face and said solemnly, Your Highness, don't worry, I will take care of this matter. Well, remember, the wine recipe must not be leaked at all. Yes. Shen Wanson strode away with the wine recipe Ning Fan gave him. Lin Yang also bought back the medicinal materials needed for the ancient body tempering recipe. However, Ning Fan had no time to take care of these at the moment. Because he has more important things to do. System, use the troop summoning card. Used successfully, please wait. I saw the troop summoning card in the system space instantly turned into golden light, and Ning Fan's face was filled with anticipation. The troop summoning card can summon the troops in the novel. I wonder if it can summon the Snow Dragon Cavalry of Biliang. Even in history, if there were 800 battles, Yufei's Beiwei army, Pre-Qin's Iron Eagle warriors, Tang Dynasty's Black Armor Cavalry, or Wei Wu's soldiers, these invincible iron armies that once shocked an era would appear in another world. What kind of uproar will it cause? Congratulations, Master, for winning the 18th Cavalry of Yanyan. 18 Riders of Yanyan. A look of deep shock appeared on Ning Fan's face, and he couldn't help but think of the historical records in his mind. The 18 Yanyan cavalry consisted of 18 people. They were dressed in cold clothes, with scimitars on their waists, masks on their faces, and their heads covered. The black scarves only reveal their eyes, and they also wear long black cloaks. They wear horse boots equipped with daggers. They all carry large bows on their backs, each carrying 18 arrows, and they are all equipped with full moon scimitars. Rumor has it that each of this 18-man cavalry can fight 1 against 100, and has killed thousands of people. Every time they go out, they will cause a bloody storm. System, where are the 18th Cavalry of Yanyan now? Back to the Master, the 18 cavalrymen of Yanyan are hiding outside the city. When the Master needs them, they will come to seek refuge. Oh, a look of surprise flashed across Ning Fan's face, and a bone flute appeared in his hand. As long as he blew this bone flute, Yanyan's 18 cavalrymen would appear in front of him at the fastest speed. That's fine. With my current status, not many eyes are on me, so I can quietly accumulate strength. However, the top priority is to find a way to buy a few salt mines first. The control of private salt in the Yu dynasty was not very strict, but once refined salt is released, it will definitely cause an uproar. We have to be cautious about this matter. To obtain the right to operate salt and iron, you may have to say hello to your father. That's it. Thinking of this, Ning Fan couldn't help but have a headache. His status meant that he couldn't do things as he pleased, otherwise it would be much easier. Fortunately, Shen Wanson was in front of him. 500 merit points, what can I exchange them for? Ning Fan fell into deep thought again. 500 merit points can be exchanged for 5 first-class summoning cards, or 1 top-level summoning card. As for the peerless summoning card, it requires 1000 merit points. Now he is about to go to the military camp to train new soldiers. Although Dian Wei is brave, he is not good at commanding troops. As for civil servants, he has not yet entered the court, and it seems that he does not need to make suggestions. Therefore, Ning Fan chose to redeem the top general summoning card. System, redeem a top general summoning card. The exchange is successful, do you want to use it? Use. Ning Fan spoke directly and saw a golden light emerge, and then a person's attribute page appeared on the light screen. Congratulations, Master, for acquiring the founding general of the Tang dynasty, Qin Chong. Qin Chong, Qin Shubao. Ning Fan looked startled. In his previous life, he had read many novels about the Sui and Tang dynasties. The name of Qin's second brother was very popular. He not only made great military exploits for Li Tang, but also attached great importance to the loyalty of Zhonghu. He rode on both sides of the Yellow River and defeated 3 states and 6 countries with his mace. The mansion is so powerful that it shakes half of the sky in Shandong. After leaving the Zhonghu, he entered the court. After the defeat of Wagang, he surrendered to Li Tang. He made great military exploits, was worshipped as General Zuo Wuwei, and was granted the title of Duke Yi. Name, Qin Chong. Dynasty, Tang Dynasty. Loyalty, Dai Loyal. Force, 96. Intelligence, 81. Command, 95. Politics, 87. Arm, Black Armor Cavalry. Magic Weapon, 4-sided golden mace, tiger-headed golden spear. Mount, Wangchao Pengulong. Special skill, Pegasus plants a gun and unleashes its trump card. Special attribute, Door God achievement attribute, force value increased by 2 points. Black Armor Cavalry. When Ning Fan saw that Qin Chong's unit was the Black Armor Cavalry, he immediately showed a look of surprise. System, is it possible that the Black Armor Cavalry of the Tang dynasty was born with Qin Chong? The military types are the military types that were controlled by the summoned generals in their previous lives, and they will not be reincarnated into the world with the generals. Okay, Ning Fan knew that he was overthinking, so he asked again, where is Qin Chong now? Go back to the master, Qin Chong will come to seek refuge within 3 days. Good. Ning Fan's eyes gradually became deeper. Now that he has obtained the right to train troops, he has a certain say in the newly recruited recruits. It is better to put Qin Chong into the military camp, so that he can be used. With his ability, as long as you give him a little chance, he will be able to leap forward without adding fuel to the fire. Lin Bo. Exist. Go and ask someone to prepare a medicine jar. I am going to make a medicinal bath. Yes. Lin Yong went down to prepare, while Ning Fan had nothing to do and looked through the general outline of recruit training rewarded by the system. It is worth mentioning that this general outline of recruit training almost covers military formations, physical strengthening, morale-boosting methods, and even some marching techniques. It is not an exaggeration to call it a military book. If I thoroughly understand this general outline of recruit training, can my command score exceed 70? Dong, triggering the system task, please check the details. A prompt sounded. Ning Fan was startled, and immediately opened the system, and saw that a new task had been refreshed on the task board. Release system task. Study the art of war. Task time limit, 1 month. Task requirements. Within 1 month, raise the command attribute to above 70. Task rewards. Photographic memory, Sun Tzu's Art of War, 36 stratagems. Photographic memory, Hiss, Sun Tzu's Art of War and 36 stratagems. Although I have turned a few pages in my previous life, I have never remembered any of them. However, it shouldn't be difficult to raise the command value to 70. Ning Fan muttered a little unconfidently, but since the system's task time limit is 1 month, it shouldn't be difficult. The higher the 4-dimensional attribute value, the harder it is to improve. For example, after the top-level hero's force value reaches 90, every point is a huge gap, an insurmountable gap. Your Highness, the medicinal bath is ready. Okay. Ning Fan stretched his muscles and bones. He had practiced spearmanship for more than an hour in the morning, and was severely beaten by Emperor Yu in the palace. Now his bones seemed to be broken. Looking at the steaming medicine jar, the strong medicinal fragrance spread far away. Ning Fan tested the water temperature, took off all his clothes, and plunged into the medicine jar. The tingling feeling instantly spread all over his body. Almost every capillary in his body was contracting violently. Ning Fan's face was flushed, and fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He only felt a warm current flowing between his bones and flesh. I don't know if it is the legendary meridian. It lasted for half an hour. Ning Fan squinted in the medicine jar for a while, feeling the drug power gradually disappear, rinsed, and changed clothes. After stretching his muscles, Ning Fan was surprised to find that the soreness and pain in his body had completely disappeared, and was replaced by endless strength. He immediately picked up the spear on the weapon rack and began to swing it. Seeing his father start to toss again, using a spear in a decent manner, Lin Yong glanced at the medicine vat in surprise, looked at Dian Wei and said, "Evil, this medicine seems to be still powerful. It's not exhausted, do you want to go in and try?" Dian Wei glanced at him and didn't bother to pay attention. Instead, he looked at Ning Fan, who was practicing martial arts, his eyes sparkling. He didn't expect that His Highness's marksmanship would improve so much in just 1 day's work. You gain insights by practicing the 13 deadly spears, and your experience value +3. You gain insights by practicing the 13 deadly spears, and your experience value +3. You practice the 13 fatal shots. Ning Fan waved the spear tirelessly, memorizing every change in the first move of the 13 deadly spears. After this medicinal bath, his body's tolerance seemed to have increased a lot. For an hour in a row, Ning Fan was completely immersed in his marksmanship. The sweat had unknowingly soaked the clothes he had just put on, only to be dried by the air unknowingly. Repeatedly. Lin Yong and Dian Wei just stood quietly aside, with surprise on their faces. Especially Lin Yong. Looking at that thin figure, it seemed as if it could fall over if the wind blew, but he stood firm every time. He has watched His Highness grow up. He has been adorned with gold and jade since he was a child. He wishes he could be carried in a sedan chair to the bedside when he moves, but now he is willing to put in so much hard work to practice martial arts. "Second Master, can you take a rest? Old slave, can I get you a glass of water?" Ning Fan seemed to turn a deaf ear to Lin Yong's words. He gritted his teeth and fired his gun more fiercely, with a faint sound of breaking through the air. You gain insights by practicing the 13 deadly spears, and your experience points will be +3. You gain insights and experience points by practicing the 13 deadly spears. Congratulations, Master, the first move of the 13 deadly spears has reached the level of success. A system prompt sounded in Ning Fan's mind, and his whole body relaxed instantly, and he collapsed on the ground, breathing heavily but with a satisfied smile on his face. System, check the martial arts support page. 13 deadly guns. Xiaocheng 1. 300. After seeing that the level on the martial arts page changed to Xiaocheng, Ning Fan also let out a deep breath. It's not easy. He didn't expect that he could hold on. He thought it would take at least 3 days to reach the stage of small success, but now with the help of medicinal bath, he could reach the stage of small success in 1 day. Although it's only the first form, it would probably take at least half a year to refine the entire 13 deadly spears to the Dacheng state. If my physical fitness could keep up, I might be able to keep practicing. Unfortunately, my physical fitness is too weak now, and I will reach my limit in an hour at most. It seems that I have to take some time to strengthen my body in the future. Ning Fan stood up, walked into the main hall, poured 20 Luwei Dawang pills into his mouth, and said, "Uncle Lin, go find some military books for me." Book of War. Lin Yong's face showed a deep look of surprise, and he smiled helplessly. "Your Highness, there is not a single book in our house. My second master has never been fond of writing, and he hates books." When the palace was first built, there was a library in the palace. Every time he made a mistake, Emperor Yu would give him a good beating and then punish him to copy books or recite a certain classic in the Sutra Pavilion. But then, somehow, the library was reduced to ruins in an unexpected fire. From then on, the second master never read a book or memorized classics, and replaced them all with a wooden board. Although the skin was torn every time, compared with the mental torture, the physical pain seemed to be easier to endure. After going back and forth, the predecessor also opened up the relationship. A wry smile appeared on Ning Fan's face, and he said softly, "That's all, I'll borrow some books from Duke Jingguo's mansion another day." "Uncle Lin, do you know where there are salt mines near the capital?" "Salt mine?" Lin Yong looked at Ning Fan in confusion. "Second master, why are you looking for a salt mine?" "I have a method for purifying refined salt, which is several times purer than the fine salt on the market." "What?" Lin Yong's expression suddenly changed. He took a deep look at Ning Fan and whispered, "Second master, are you serious about this? When has this king ever joked with you?" "Hiss." Lin Yong had a look of shock on his face. He pondered for a long time and said softly, "Old slave, I will go and inquire about it now. However, second master, this matter is of great importance, so please be cautious." "Don't worry, I know what's going on." Ning Fan looked at Lin Yong's concerned look and knew that the old guy was afraid that he would be deceived again. Lin Yong left in a hurry, and Ning Fan had nothing to do, so he opened the general outline of recruit training and began to study it. "Your Highness, there is a strong man coming from outside the house, and he is here to surrender." "Oh." Ning Fan had a look of surprise on his face and said softly, "Invite that person in." "Yes." Not long after, I saw a muscular man striding into the hall. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and he was very heroic. When he saw Ning Fan's figure, he stepped forward and saluted. "Kaoman Qin Chong, please see your Highness." "Qin Chong, Qin Shubao." A gentle smile appeared on Ning Fan's face, and he stepped forward to help him up. "Uncle Bao, I have been waiting for you for a long time." "How does your Highness know the cousin's name?" "Ha ha. I not only know your name, but I also know that you are good at wielding two maces and are proficient in marksmanship." Qin Chong looked puzzled. Ning Fan did not explain, but smiled and said, "From now on, you will live in my house, and go to the military camp with me tomorrow." "Yes." After Qin Chong bowed respectfully, Ning Fan asked him to put down his luggage, and the two sat down. "Shubao, the court has recruited a new army of 100,000, and I am ordered to train the new army. You will go to the military camp tomorrow. I want you to join the army and establish a career. What do you think?" As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, Qin Chong's eyes flashed with a gleam of brilliance, and he bowed and said, "Your Highness, I am willing to join the army and accumulate strength for your Highness." "Okay." Seeing that Qin Chong understood instantly, Ning Fan's face also showed a touch of joy. Although Qin Chong was loyal to him, the system summoned a living person, so he naturally had to communicate with him first. "Come, take a look at this general outline of recruit training." Qin Chong took the book from Ning Fan's hand with curiosity. His face suddenly froze, and he said in surprise, "Your Highness, I have read several military strategies and have some insights into the training methods of soldiers. But the methods in this general outline of training are unheard of. Do you think this method is feasible?" "It is feasible." Qin Chong nodded without hesitation. "At least, this method of training soldiers' physique is definitely several times or even dozens of times stronger than the existing methods in the army." "Ha ha ha, that's good. This king still has some things he doesn't understand, and he still needs to ask you for advice." Now that there is a commander with a command value of 95 sitting aside, Ning Fan will naturally not let go of this free tool man. "Congratulations, Master. You have studied the general outline of recruit training and gained insights into military tactics. Your command value is +1. Congratulations, Master. You have studied the general outline of recruit training and gained insights into military tactics. Your command value is +1. For the whole afternoon, Ning Fan has been immersed in military books. Under Qin Chong's guidance, his progress is also very rapid. If he maintains this progress, he may be able to complete the system task in less than a month. System, check my attribute page. Name, Ning Fan. Identity, the second prince of the Dayu dynasty, King Xuanyang, the top playboy in Yuwang City, a high-quality customer of Fengxiang Building, the chief coach of the 100,000 new troops. Military power, 44. Intelligence, 81. Command, 61. Politics, 61. Magic weapon, none. Mount, none. Items, Luwei Dawang pills, Suiyang Gujing pills, Jingkui Shenqi pills, Wuzi Yanzong pills, ancient body quenching recipes, refined salt purification method, ancient winemaking process. Unique skills, 13 deadly spears minor success. Summoning heroes, Dian Wei, Shen Wanson, Qin Chong. Summoning arm, 18 riders of Yanyan. Ning Fan's face was full of surprise when he saw that his military power had increased by 5 points. Could it be because the first move of the 13 deadly spears had reached the minor success level? The intelligence and political attributes did not seem to have changed, and the command value was also increased by 2 points after an afternoon of hard study. Time will punish lazy people, and destiny will not let down hard-working people. Master, come on. After drinking a bowl of poisonous chicken soup poured by the system, Ning Fan couldn't help but smile secretly. There are many things in the world that cannot be done by hard work. Taking out the gun manual of the 13 fatal guns from the system space, Ning Fan continued to study it. Not long after, he was completely immersed in the gun manual of the 13 fatal guns. You have watched the gun manual of the 13 fatal guns, gained insights, and the experience value +1. Hearing a sudden system prompt sound, Ning Fan's face was full of shock. Is this possible? This martial arts auxiliary function is too amazing. No words were spoken all night. Ning Fan just held the gun manual and fell asleep unknowingly. He was too tired that day. The next morning, at dawn, a red-orange skyline floated in the east, as if dividing the sky and the earth into two. A hot halo slowly rose from the center of the skyline, filled with purple air. Under the cover of mist, it was like a shy girl taking off her face scarf. The first ray of light was cast on the tower of Yuwang City, and gradually, it passed over the blue bricks, crossed the streets, and spread over the deep courtyard, and cast on the figure of a thin boy. The long spear moved like a dragon, and sweat dripped on the bluestone on the ground while waving it. The sharp sound of breaking through the air continued to make a series of shrieks. Eli, has His Highness really just started practicing martial arts? This is the third day. Hiss. Qin Chong's face showed a deep surprise. He was also a master of spearmanship, so he could naturally see Ning Fan's level at a glance. Although the spearmanship's offensive was not fast enough, it should be due to insufficient physical strength, but in terms of skills and moves, His Highness's spearmanship had obviously achieved some success. It only took 3 days to refine the spear skills to such a level. I didn't expect His Highness to have such a talent in martial arts. It's a pity that His Highness has missed the best period for martial arts training, otherwise, he might not be able to reach the peak of martial arts. Qin Chong sighed softly, his face full of regret, but what he didn't know was that Ning Fan was a cheater. There was no such thing as the best period for martial arts training. As long as he practiced martial arts hard enough, it would be a matter of time before he became a peerless general. You practiced the 13 deadly spears and gained insights, experience points +5. You practiced the 13 deadly spears and gained insights, experience points +5. You practiced the 13 deadly spears and gained insights. Ning Fan found that as his proficiency in the 13 deadly spears increased, the experience points he gained after each practice also gradually increased, from 1 point at the beginning to 5 points now. Last night, he practiced the spear manual more than 10 times, and this morning he practiced the spear skills more than 10 times again. After tossing and turning for an hour, his clothes were soaked with sweat again. Ning Fan felt that his body was almost at its limit. He looked at Lin Yang and said, "Go, prepare for the medicinal bath. Eli, Shu Bao, you two get ready. After I take a bath and change clothes, I will rush to the military camp." "Yes. Your Highness, it's getting late. It's time to leave." Lin Yang stepped forward and reminded him softly. Ning Fan looked at the time and saw that it was already 3/4 of the morning. He changed into a black uniform and walked out of the mansion with Dian Wei and Qin Chong. "Your Highness." Qin Chong and Dian Wei both put on black armor, which added a bit of majesty compared to usual days. Ning Fan nodded slightly and said softly, let's go to the Duke's mansion first. Yes, Ning Fan did not take a carriage. Although riding a horse was a little difficult for him, he was going to the military camp today after all. Now he was also a general of the new army. If he took a carriage, he would be laughed at. At the Jingguo mansion, Li Shuning was also wearing a general's armor, followed by more than 10 elite cavalrymen, looking more heroic than usual. The two of them nodded slightly and ran towards the city's west camp together. Li Shuning's eyes fell on Ning Fan, who was no longer wearing a wide-sleeved robe or brocade clothes and jade ornaments today, but instead looked more capable. Who is this? Seeing a strange face beside Ning Fan, with two maces hanging on both sides of the horse, holding a golden spear in his hand, a sharp and stern look between his eyebrows, and a sense of power from long-term killing, it is obvious that he is not an ordinary person. This is Qin Chong, courtesy name Shubao, a personal guard of my mansion. Personal guard. A trace of surprise flashed across Li Shuning's face, but he did not ask more questions, and said softly, Your Highness, when you arrive at the military camp later, don't act too high profile. Oh, looking at Ning Fan's puzzled eyes, Li Shuning said slowly, most of the newly recruited soldiers this time are from the capital, and your name is even more well-known. You have a bad reputation in the capital. Li Shuning seemed to feel that the wording was inappropriate, and the sound stopped abruptly, but Ning Fan's face was full of black lines, and he said unhappily, Thank you for the reminder, princess. I'll remember it. Ha ha. Li Yan, who was beside Li Shuning, saw Ning Fan's defeat, and laughed without hesitation, teasing, Don't worry, Your Highness, I will do my best to protect you. Get lost. Several people chatted and galloped on their horses. Except for Ning Fan, who was a little tired, everyone was at ease. After walking for half an hour, they arrived in front of a camp. Is this the new army camp? Looking from a small high slope, Ning Fan's face showed a deep shock. A large camp stretching for more than 10 miles was located in a staggered manner, with people in square formations standing in rows. A sense of killing came from afar. Yes, this is my Dayu new army camp. Let's go. New army camp. Seeing a group of people coming on horseback, the soldiers guarding the village gate quickly stepped forward to stop them. This general, Li Shuning, has come to take over the new army camp according to His Majesty's order. Shira, General Li. The expression of the soldier guarding the camp changed slightly. After checking the tiger talisman's arrow, a look of respect appeared on his face. Who is in charge of the camp now? Reporting to the general, it is General Chen Fang, Deputy Commander of the Imperial Army. Go and notify General Chen and ask him to come and make arrangements for the handover. As you command. Seeing Li Shuning doing things so neatly, Ning Fan couldn't help but show a hint of admiration in his eyes. If he could make a great name on the northern battlefield, how could he be just a vase? Soon, as several people entered the camp, Li Shuning couldn't help but frown, and looked at Li Yan next to him. Yunur, go and ask, are there any training missions today? Ning Fan glanced around, his eyes fell on a tent, and he walked over. Qin Chong and Dian Wei quickly followed. Li Shuning heard several shouts coming from the tent from time to time, and her face suddenly darkened. Get down. Big, small. In the camp, more than 10 people gathered around a square table and roared loudly. The curtain was suddenly opened, and 3 figures were seen striding in. The leader had a handsome face, and was dressed in black tight-fitting clothes. There was a faint hint of a long-lived person. The aura of superiority. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the entire tent became colder. All the soldiers stopped shouting and all their eyes fell on Ning Fan. I'm big, and I'm a leopard. Open. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, the sergeants all breathed a sigh of relief, with a look of fear on their faces. You scared me. I thought it was some general who came to inspect. A burly man glanced at Ning Fan with some complaints, opened the dice cup, with a look of surprise on his face, and suddenly looked at Ning Fan. What a leopard. Brother, you are so amazing. Ha ha ha, I won. A maniacal laugh spread far away, and Li Shuning and the others also strode in. When they saw Ning Fan actually joining in, they frowned slightly and were about to speak, but heard Ning Fan's voice. You gather people here to gamble so blatantly, aren't you afraid of military law? Hearing Ning Fan's question, several men's expressions froze and they said disdainfully, what nonsense military law? Now our army of 100,000 has been forgotten by the court. As Ning Fan asked, he grabbed the dice cup, stretched out his hand and swept all 5 dice into the cup. After raising his hand and shaking it, he suddenly settled down under the admiring eyes of all the men. Awesome, brother. I didn't expect that my little brother could be so skilled at such a young age. Yeah, if you have this skill, why would you want to join the army? Ning Fan smiled lightly and glanced around playfully. Want to learn? Think. Ning Fan smiled as he opened the dice cup and saw 5 dice neatly stacked into several rows. Only the top dice was exposed, which turned out to be a dot. All the gamblers looked at him in amazement and respected him like a god. You can learn if you want, just answer me a few questions first. Brother, feel free to ask questions. As long as I know something, I will tell you. Let me ask you, is there any training in the camp these days? Train. Several men were obviously stunned for a moment, and sneered, since we entered the camp, no one has taken care of us. We cook and eat on time every day, and spend the rest of the time sleeping in the tent. How can it be? Before Ning Fan could speak, Li Shuning behind him couldn't help but strode forward and said, "Where is the general of your camp?" General. From beginning to end, we didn't even know what the general looked like. Yeah, the imperial court recruited us and just left us here. In more than a month, I gained 7 pounds, hee hee. Upon hearing this, Ning Fan knew that there was no need to continue asking, and asked playfully, "What's your name?" My name is Qin Chong, brother, do you want to accept me as your disciple? Well, it's not impossible to accept apprentices, but I have very strict requirements for my apprentices. Li Shuning saw that Ning Fan was still thinking about joking, and said with a solemn face, "Your Highness, this matter is not trivial. The soldiers in the military camp are so depraved that they even gather people to gamble. They have no military discipline and can easily lead to a mutiny. Chen Feng really deserves to be punished. Die." Your Highness. Hearing Li Shuning's name, several sergeants in the camp looked at Ning Fan with panic on their faces. You are Qin Chong. The general is here. You take the Princess Tiger talisman and go beat the drum to gather the generals. I allow you to act according to the opportunity. If anyone disobeys, he will be killed without mercy. As you command, Your Highness. Li Shuning showed a trace of hesitation on his face and looked at Ning Fan. Do I need to report this matter to His Majesty first? Ning Fan shook his head slightly and looked at Li Yan next to Li Shuning. Li Yan, take the tokens of me and the princess and return to King Yu City immediately, inform the city defense army to close the city gate immediately and put the entire city on alert. Li Yan glanced at Li Shuning, saw him nodding, took the jade talisman, bowed respectfully and left in a hurry. More than a dozen sergeants in the camp were frightened. They knelt on the ground one after another, with panic on their faces. Your Highness, please spare your life. I'm sorry. Youngster, I won't dare to do that anymore. Get up. Ning Fan looked at Qin Chong, his eyes swept around, and whispered, this king will give you a chance to redeem yourself and make meritorious service. Take us to the Central Army tent. Yes, yes. Qin Chong couldn't help but tremble with his legs, and walked in front of Ning Fan and his party towards the Central Army tent. Your Highness, Chen Feng must have heard the news of our coming, will he? He dare not. Ning Fan shook his head slightly and smiled faintly. Chen Feng should not have any rebellious intentions, otherwise, he would never allow military discipline to be so lax, but a dereliction of duty crime is inevitable. Then why did you let Yun'er go to the royal city to report the news? Just in case. Li Shuning looked at Ning Fan deeply, followed him silently, and the dull sound of war drums rang out throughout the camp. Figures rushed out of the tent in a hurry, looking confused. The war drums are beating. Is the war going to start? This is the capital, how could there be a war? It should be beating the drums to gather the troops, right? In the Central Army camp, Chen Feng was holding a wine glass in his hand, holding a beauty in his arms, eating the grapes that the beauty handed to his mouth, and occasionally showing a lewd smile. Suddenly, a dull drum sounded, and the beauty in his arms trembled all over. What's going on? Come here, who is beating the drums to gather the troops? A man in armor suddenly rushed into the tent and whispered, General Qi, General Li Shuning of the Duke of Jingguo has come to take over the new army on your Majesty's order. Now the group has entered the camp. What? Chen Feng's expression suddenly changed, there was a trace of fear in his eyes, and the drunkenness on his face faded a little, and he said angrily, "Why are you reporting now? Who asked you to let her in? Why didn't your majesty even say hello beforehand? It's over, it's all over now." Chen Feng sat in despair on the commander's tent, his face ashen, and murmured, "What should I do? General, why don't you tidy up the tent first? After all, you are from one of the 4 famous families. Even the Duke of Jingguo is not willing to offend you for nothing. At most, you will be charged with dereliction of duty. For the sake of the Chen family, your majesty will naturally not care too much." After hearing the captain's words, Chen Feng nodded slightly, looked at the woman next to him, and whispered, "Go and hide quickly, I will send someone to take you out later." Yes. The woman was so frightened that her face turned pale, and she was about to leave, but suddenly she saw several figures breaking into the tent. The leader was a boy of 17 or 18 years old, who was looking at him with amusement. "General Chen, you really know how to enjoy it." Ning Fan's eyes fell on the woman, who seemed familiar, and asked tentatively, "The one with red sleeves?" I've met King Zanyang. His Highness." The woman also recognized Ning Fan, who was the #1 financial backer of their Red Sleeve movement. He once spent thousands of dollars on the Red Sleeve movement for the Red Sleeve girl. When Li Shuning heard the word, "red sleeves," she looked at Ning Fan with contempt in her eyes. He was indeed a famous playboy in the capital. He was showing mercy everywhere. Ning Fan had a playful look on his face, looked at the woman, and said calmly, "What's your name?" Back to your highness, my slave's flower name is Chinger." "Oh, Chinger." Ning Fan looked at Dian Wei, who was standing aside, and said softly, "Take him back to my house and don't allow anyone to touch him." "Promise." Dian Wei responded and strode towards Chinger. The latter looked frightened and hugged Chen Feng. General, save the new family. I'm yours." Seeing the beauty beneath him, Chen Feng also showed a hint of unbearability, and slightly cupped his hands towards Ning Fan. "Your Highness, you heard it, now Chinger is mine." "Your people." There was a hint of teasing in Ning Fan's eyes. "I'm not sure who he is." "Someone is coming. Tie Chen Feng to me." "Yes, you dare." When Chen Feng heard this, he suddenly looked furious and looked at Ning Fan and said, "King Xuanyang, I am a 3rd-grade general who has been personally appointed by His Majesty. Do you dare to touch me?" As soon as he finished speaking, Dian Wei was seen carrying a big halberd, swinging it over and knocking it over to the ground. The guards behind Li Shuning rushed up and took it down. "Your Highness, now that the overall situation is at stake, shouldn't we wait until we return to the capital to get jealous?" He. Ning Fan faced Li Shuning's stern gaze, walked towards Chinger, reached out to lift her chin, and asked softly, "Tell me, who sent you here?" "Ah, Your Highness, what do you mean? It was General Chen who brought the slave here." "Your Highness, spare your life." Chinger had a look of fear on her face. Ning Fan reached out and pulled out the long sword from Dian Wei's waist, put it directly on her neck, and said calmly, "If you don't tell me, you will die within 3 breaths. Me." Puff. An arrow shot directly through the air through the tent and accurately shot into Chinger's chest. Ning Fan's expression suddenly changed, and Dian Wei was stunned for a moment. He picked up his 2 halberds and rushed directly outside the tent. "Protect your Highness." Li Shuning's expression condensed and he gave an order. More than a dozen elites behind him guarded Ning Fan. Xu Chong also had a glint in his eyes. "Your Highness, I remember the smell of that person, I'm going to chase him." As he spoke, he suddenly rushed out of the tent. Ning Fan couldn't help but narrowed his eyes, looked at the armored soldiers beside him and said, "Everyone, please step back. They are not here for me." Li Shuning stepped forward to check Chinger's breathing, and sighed softly, "Dead. How did you guess that she was under the instigation of someone else?" Since ancient times, heroes have always had trouble with beauties. Girls with red sleeves are never allowed to be taken away, even if I once. Ning Fan's words suddenly stopped and he said, "However, this matter must be related to Hongshou Jiao. That Hongshou girl is not simple." As he spoke, he walked up to Chen Feng, squatted down and asked, "She asked you to let go of military affairs?" "Yes, Your Highness, all the generals have been bewitched by this witch." It was she who asked the general to promote several captains. As soon as Chen Feng finished speaking, Ning Fan's eyes narrowed and he said in a deep voice, "Who are those captains?" "There are Wei Kai, Kai Kan, and Chen 12. Ku Chi, Zhang Jun, you two go quickly and tell Qin Chong to capture these 3 people. As you command, try to catch them alive." Ning Fan did not forget to give his instructions and looked at Chen Fang. "His Majesty has assigned you to take charge of the new army. Where are the other lieutenants?" "Them." Chen Fang's expression suddenly changed, and a hint of hesitation appeared on his face. Ning Fan said lightly, "If you tell it now, you may be able to atone for your sins, and I will also plead with His Majesty. If I find out, the Chen family can't save you." I said, "Your Highness, they were all thrown into the dungeon by me. This is also the bewitching of that witch." Ning Fan was speechless for a moment. He was really a complete waste. Just a woman completely controlled him and almost took away his power. "Take him away." "Yes." After Chen Fang was taken away, Ning Fan looked at Li Shuning and whispered, "Release a few deputy generals first to help us completely control the army." Okay. Led by several soldiers, Ning Fan came to a dim dungeon. 3 figures were trapped in the cage by iron chains, dying and pale. But Generals Ni Feng, Chai Yu, and Chu Tianlu. "Yes, who are you?" A disheveled man raised his head with difficulty and looked at Ning Fan and his group, a trace of blood seeping from his cracked lips. "I am Li Shuning, and I am ordered by His Majesty to take over the new army. This is His Royal Highness King Xuanyang." Dian Wei. Ning Fan looked at Dian Wei, who raised his double halberds and suddenly chopped at the wooden cage. With a loud bang, the wooden cage instantly broke into pieces. Dian Wei swung his halberd to cut off the chains on them, and several soldiers rushed up to help. "Thank you, Your Highness. This Chen Fang really deserves to die." On the school field, Qin Chong stood on the general stand. As the war drums sounded, figures wearing armor gathered here. A group of new army generals stood under the general's platform, looking at the majestic figure standing above them, and for a while, they were talking about it. "Who is this person? Is there such a number 1 figure in my new army? It's very strange, as if I've never seen it before." The recruitment of the new army has just been completed, and the camp has only been established a few days ago. Almost all the middle-level generals were temporarily transferred from the Forbidden Army. Basically, they all look familiar, but the man on the stage seems to be familiar to all the generals. Never seen. For a moment, everyone focused their attention on the figure on the high platform. There were 2 maces hanging on his waist, and there was a faint aura of self-reliance on his body. Under his gaze, no one was there. Dare to look into his eyes. General Qin Chong, on the order of King Xuanyang, is here to temporarily take over the military camp. As soon as Qin Chong finished speaking, the generals below started talking to each other again. "King Xuanyang, is he the famous dandy prince in the capital?" "General Qin, we all obey the orders of Commander Chen Fang. I'm afraid His Highness King Xuanyang has no right to intervene in the military camp, right?" Qin Chong slowly took out a command talisman from his arms and said loudly, "Your Majesty, the tiger talisman is here. From now on, I will take over the military camp. Do you have any objections?" "I have no objection." When all the captains saw the tiger talisman in Qin Chong's hand, they all looked stern. The generals who had been shouting just now obediently shut their mouths and respectfully performed a military salute. "General Qin." With a soft cry, 2 figures were seen running quickly, looking at Qin Chong and saying, "General Qin, the prince has an order to capture Gui Kai, Kai Kan, and Chen 12. As soon as he finished speaking, all the captains looked at the 3 people whose names were called. The expressions of all 3 people suddenly changed. A strong man suddenly stepped out of the queue and shouted angrily, "Why? General, even if you have His Majesty's military talisman, everything in the army has its own rules. If you want to take down the 3 of us, you have to give a reason, right? I can't bear to wait. Yes, you can kill people with no more than a nod of your head. I don't know what crime we have committed. Why are the 3 of us taken down? HMPH, if you don't give us an explanation today, we will not give up even if we die." The 3 of them all looked angry, with a flash of panic in their eyes. The other generals also looked on with cold eyes. These 3 people were not men who came out of the Forbidden Army, but were promoted by Chen Fang, so they did not act rashly, but turned their gazes. Look at Qin Chong. When Qin Chong heard that it was Ning Fan's order, without saying a word, she looked at the generals below. Take these 3 people down. Promise. The surrounding generals and captains all had stern looks on their faces, and drew their swords to kill the 3 of them. There was a sparkle in Qin Chong's eyes. Under the siege of more than 10 masters in the army, these 3 people seemed to be at ease, and even vaguely able to gain the upper hand. It was obviously not easy for them. Everyone, in a fight with colleagues, is it possible that you don't care about your feelings? Qin Chong, as soon as he came up, he attacked us for no reason. He was clearly trying to eradicate dissidents. How can he, an unknown person, have His Majesty's tiger talisman? This person must be a spy sent by the enemy. Among the 3, Chai Yu's eyes showed a trace of unwillingness. While resisting the offensive of the surrounding generals, he spoke out words to sow discord. A sneer appeared on Ku Chi's face and said, "Stop struggling fearlessly, the craftsman next to Chen Fang. I have been silenced by your people. If you don't want to follow in her footsteps, just surrender as soon as possible." What? When the 3 of them heard this, their expressions suddenly changed, and the generals around them also noticed that something was wrong. For a moment, they looked at the 3 of them with cold eyes, and they took action without any scruples. Everyone, stand down. Qin Chong jumped down from the high platform with a 4-edged gold mace in his hand, and with the help of inertia, he swung his 2 maces towards Gui Kai, who had the most powerful force. Bump! A burst of sparks shot out, and Gui Kai felt his arms go numb, and the broad knife in his hand almost fell out of his hand. He took 4 or 5 steps back before he could steady himself, and looked at the big man holding the mace in front of him with a look of horror. So strong. All the generals around him looked at Qin Chong with awe. As the saying goes, the true seal of his subordinates was revealed. They had just fought with Gui Kai a few times, and they were well aware of the terrifying strength of this man. Unexpectedly, Qin Chong took action, fighting 1 against 3, and directly suppressed the 3 of them. This kind of skill, not to mention in this new barracks, is probably one of the best among the Forbidden Army. With Qin Chong on the attack, the 3 captains were knocked to the ground in just a few rounds, each with several broken ribs. In just a short moment, Qin Chong won the respect of all the generals with his own strength. This has always been the case in the army. Both soldiers and generals will only fear the strong and rely on their fists to do everything. Bring them to me and keep them under strict guard. From now on, no one is allowed to move without the general's order. Anyone who disobeys the order will be killed. As you command, the Chinese military tent. Ni Feng and the other 3 saluted Ning Fan with expressions of gratitude. Ever since they were thrown into the dungeon by Chen Fang, they had completely fallen into despair. All their cronies had been suppressed, including the old man. "General, thank you for your life-saving grace, Your Highness." 3 generals, there is no need to be polite, it is my king who is late. Ning Fan stepped forward to help the 3 of them up, and saw Xu Chong striding in. The blood on his body was not dry. He bowed respectfully and said, "Your Highness, the thief who shot the arrow in secret has been captured by the younger one." A look of deep surprise appeared on Ning Fan's face. You know, the assassin was caught by Dian Wei even before he could catch him. Where are the people? Dead, with a poison sac in his mouth. Where is the body? Outside the tent. Ning Fan raised his feet and walked towards the outside of the tent. Li Shuning and others followed suit. As soon as they walked out of the tent, they saw a corpse on the ground. There were long drag marks not far away. It was obviously dragged by Xu Chong. "Come back. Recruit." "Exactly." Xu Chong nodded and said, "The crossbow in this man's hand is our army's military crossbow, and the armor on his body is also the armor of the new recruits. Check this person's identity." "Yes." Ning Fan looked at Xu Chong's leaving figure with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Although this guy has some bad habits, he is also very good at it. Qin Chong strode in with both maces in hand. After a respectful salute, he presented the military talisman. "My lord, princess, now the new army camp has been taken over by the general, and I have captured the 3 of Gui Kai." "Okay." Ning Fan nodded slightly, looked at Nifeng and the others, and said softly, "3 generals, now that Chen Fang has been taken down by me, we are new here, and we still need 3 of them to come forward to stabilize the morale of the army. Don't worry, Your Highness, just leave it to the 3 of us." Ning Fan nodded with a smile, and Li Shuning on the side spoke at the right time. Do you want to report to your majesty the matters regarding the camp first? Then the princess will prepare a memorial and present it to his majesty. How about you? Of course we will start training new recruits. Ning Fan smiled playfully, as cynical as ever, and looked at Qin Chong and said, Uncle Bao, take me to the school grounds. Your Highness, the storm in the camp has just subsided. Do you want to wait 2 days before? No need, Ning Fan said disapprovingly. If we popularize the method of military training as soon as possible, I will rush back to the capital to listen to music. Forehead. After hearing Ning Fan's reply, everyone was speechless. Li Shuning looked at Ning Fan with curiosity. After this incident, her view of Ning Fan also changed a lot. Faced with this crisis, he was able to be so orderly and calm, and it really didn't look like the actions of a playboy. Thinking of Ning Fan's life experience, Li Shuning's complexion gradually darkened, and he was suddenly shocked. Could it be that King Zanyang's previous image of a playboy was just a disguise? Boom. Release system task. Troop training 2. Task requirements. Popularize the general training method for recruits in the recruit camps and establish an effective competitive promotion mechanism. Task time limit. 3 days. Task reward. Spring and Autumn Assassin is randomly summoned, with a merit value of 500 points. Hearing the system prompt sound in his mind, Ning Fan's face remained calm, but there was a hint of joy in his heart. The system's task came in time. Moreover, the rewards are also very interesting. There is a random assassin from the spring and autumn period, and there are 500 merit points, so you can definitely make money without losing money. System. Can merit points be obtained only by relying on system tasks? There are also troop summoning cards, how can I get them? Master, as long as you perform meritorious deeds recognized by the Imperial Court and receive rewards from the Imperial Court, you can obtain merit points. Currently, military cards can only be obtained randomly through system tasks. After the system is upgraded, they can be redeemed in the system mall. System upgrade. Ning Fan had a look of doubt on his face, and just as he was about to ask more questions, he saw Qin Chong striding over. Your Highness, the soldiers have been assembled and the fighting platform has been set up. Let's go to the martial arts training ground. Martial arts training ground. There are many soldiers standing there, and the war drums are beating in unison. Ning Fan walked up to the high platform wearing a spacious robe, looking at the sparkling armor below, his eyes full of shock. Even though the formation was extremely loose, even though many soldiers were listless, a square formation of 100,000 people stood there. This filled the huge school grounds to the brim, and it was so shocking that it was hard to express in words. Soldiers. From now on, I and Princess Chengning will jointly take charge of the new army camp and be responsible for the training of new recruits. The army of 100,000 will be divided into 20 battalions, with each battalion having 5,000 men and led by a captain. As soon as Ning Fan's words fell, there was an instant commotion in the camp in front. The army of 100,000 was divided into 20 camps. Throughout the ages, there has never been such a precedent. All the lieutenants and generals also looked shocked. There are at least nearly 100 lieutenant colonels in the army now. If they are divided into 20 battalions, wouldn't many of them have to be demoted? Your Highness, is this action somewhat inconsistent with military regulations? Yes, Your Highness, there are hundreds of colonels in our new army. If we follow Your Highness's order, wouldn't there be hundreds of thousands of soldiers? Your Highness, please take back your order. Many soldiers showed dissatisfaction, and Ning Fan had a faint smile on his face, and the sound sounded like a loud bell in the huge martial arts training ground. I have said that from now on, everything in this new army camp will be decided by me. If anyone has any objections, he or she can stand up and make a proposal to this king. Is anyone going to come forward? Ning Fan glanced around, and the generals below silently shrank their heads and looked left and right. Obviously, no one wanted to be the one who stood out. Very good. Since there are no objections, then just listen to what I have to say. From now on, the commanders of corps, commanders of hundreds, and commanders of thousands in the army will all be decided by competition. The capable are promoted and the mediocre are demoted. In the army, everything depends on fists. As soon as Ning Fan said this, there was an instant excitement below. There was a competition to decide who would become the corps commander. What commander? Even Nifeng and the other three looked surprised. If this happened, wouldn't the entire military camp be in chaos? Generals above the rank of lieutenant colonel, come out. Before the discussion below could subside, Ning Fan gave an order, and figures walked out of the array one after another. More than 100 burly men lined up in vertical rows in front of the general stage, quietly waiting for Ning Fan's order. You are all veterans in the army. I will give you an opportunity today to select 20 captains from among you to take charge of each battalion. However, what is different from the past is that you may have only commanded hundreds of people, or more than 1,000 people. But this time, I will give you a chance to take charge of a camp of 5,000 people. That is to say, among you, only 20 of you can retain the position of captain. The rest can only compete for the rank of centurion. If you still fail to win the rank of centurion, you can continue to compete for the rank of centurion, until you get the next position. If you can't win a single position, then start with the leader and climb up again. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of all the generals below changed. Some were happy and some were worried. The eyes of the powerful ones were shining brightly, while the faces of the inferior ones showed worries. Your Highness, I don't know how to select a captain. A muscular man suddenly stepped forward, performed a military salute, and asked loudly. Good question. Ning Fan showed a smile and said softly, the method of selecting captains is very simple. Everything is solved with fists. After a stick of incense, you will compete in front of the formation to determine the 20 strong ones to take up the post of school captain. Good. Among the generals, some laughed loudly, with excitement on their faces, especially some of the generals who came from poor families. They looked at Ning Fan as if they were reborn parents. Many of these captains came from aristocratic families in the capital, and were arranged to be gilded by their families. Some even held the position of captain when they first joined the army, while they, the children of poor families, climbed up step by step from the bottom. Only then did we have today. Therefore, after hearing Ning Fan's words, many people looked happy and felt a sense of high fighting spirit. But don't be happy too early. I will give you a month at most. After a month, the competition will start again. However, it will be a competition for the whole army. If a centurion can replace you, then you will be demoted one level and replace the centurion. The selection of corporals and sergeants is the same. The capable ones will be promoted and the mediocre ones will be demoted. Every 3 months, a competition for the whole army will be held. In short, as long as you have a strong fist, you can keep climbing up, from corporal to sergeant, to centurion, to captain, and even to lieutenant. You may even have the opportunity to be conferred a general and enjoy the court salary in the future. As soon as Ning Fan said this, not only the generals below were excited, but also the soldiers behind him spread the word to the rear army formation. I've long disliked our sergeant. He's obviously not good at anything, but he just rides on our heads and shouts at us. Now, I have to pull him down from the position of sergeant. Ha ha ha, with my strength, it shouldn't be difficult to get a centurion. Sergeant, I'm sorry, let's move our butts in a month. In the battle formation, there was a lot of noise, but Ning Fan and others did not stop it, but let it ferment until all 100,000 troops understood the rules. Ning Fan looked at the soldiers below and the voices became more and more intense, and winked at Qin Chong next to him. The latter nodded slightly, stepped forward, and said in a low voice, all generals, go to the high platform and prepare for the competition. As Qin Chong gave an order, figures walked towards the pre-prepared platform. Ning Fan had deliberately made the platform small and barely able to accommodate 100 people. But now nearly 200 people were squeezed up, and everyone had very little space. Starting immediately, all generals will fight on the platform. Those who fall off the platform will be eliminated until there are only 100 people left. The drums sound as the signal, and the battle will begin after 3 drums. As soon as Qin Chong finished speaking, the generals on the platform all showed a look of surprise. They didn't expect that nearly 100 people would be eliminated at the beginning. This means that in just one round, nearly 100 of them will bid farewell to the post of lieutenant. For a moment, everyone had different expressions, some were happy and some were worried. Boom, 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 accompanied by a dull drum sound, a group of generals also started a chaotic battle. After just a few encounters, several figures fell off the platform. The fight was fierce. Qin Chong looked at the chaotic battle of more than 100 people on the high platform, put down the double maces in his hands, flew onto the fighting stage, and personally eliminated those lucky ones who were just filling in the numbers. Most of those who can sit firmly in the position of lieutenant in the new army are of extraordinary origin and have two brushes in their hands. Don't underestimate those young men from aristocratic families. They have been taught by famous teachers since childhood, and many of them are even from generals. Their martial arts should not be underestimated. In the battle circle, everyone was fighting endlessly, coming and going, rubbing their hands, and from time to time someone was taken off the high platform, with a touch of loneliness on his face, and some people fell to the ground and were carried down. Qin Chong wandered among the crowd. In just a few breaths, he knocked more than a dozen generals off the high platform, constantly looking for lucky ones with slightly inferior strength. Everyone seemed to have noticed Qin Chong's extraordinariness, and all looked solemn. Everyone, the rules don't say that we are not allowed to join hands. Why don't we attack together and ask General Qin to go down first? That's what I mean. Several men saw Qin Chong's threat and approached him at the same time, forming a temporary alliance and attacking together. Come on, Qin Chong shouted, and his expression became more serious. He clenched his fists and calmly dealt with the attacks of several people, seeming to be at ease. Awesome. Seeing that Qin Chong was fighting against many people with a small number of people and was not at a disadvantage at all, many generals also felt a sense of respect. When they saw him attacking Gui Kai and the other two before, they realized that his martial arts was not simple. But now that they have really fought with him, they know that this unprepossessing man has even better martial arts skills. For a whole stick of incense, more and more people joined the sequence of besieging Qin Chong, but not only did they not force him off the fighting stage, but they kicked several of them off by him. 19 more people will be eliminated, and the fight will end. 18 people. 17 people. Ning Fan stood on the stage, silently counting the number of people on the stage, and shouted loudly. The fight on the stage was getting more and more intense. Those who could hold on to this moment were all extraordinary people. Seeing that they were about to enter the ranks of the 100, everyone gathered their strength and fought for a future. Qin Chong glanced around and saw that the time was almost right. He flew away from the stage and landed beside Ning Fan, and also set his eyes on the generals below. How is it? Have you found any good seedlings? They have almost reached the third-rate level, and a few have stepped into the threshold of the second rate. There are a few good seedlings, but they seem to have never seen blood. Ning Fan nodded slightly, and said with a smile, most of these generals are drawn from the Imperial Army. The Imperial Army is stationed in the capital and there is no war all year round. Compared with the border army, their strength is much worse. The competition is over. The hundreds of people on the stage will rest for an incense stick before entering the second round. With Qin Chong's loud shout, everyone on the martial arts stage also stopped, with a touch of joy on their faces. Although they may not be able to keep the position of captain, now the situation is uncertain, they still have a great chance. And the people who fell off the stage had complicated expressions, with envy, unwillingness, and a little jealousy and disdain. Your Highness, how will the second round start? Ni Feng, who was standing beside Ning Fan, showed a hint of curiosity on his face. Qin Chong chuckled and said, the second round is a cavalry battle, which is also a melee. Each person will eliminate at least one person to determine the top 40. Hiss. Ni Feng and the other two all changed their expressions. They didn't expect that a small battle for the position of lieutenant would be so fierce. Although they didn't personally participate in the competition, in such a cruel competition, even if they took action, they might not be 100% sure to win the position of lieutenant. For a moment, the expressions of the three were quite complicated. Now that King Xuanyang has taken full control of the military camp, how will he arrange for the three of them? Ning Fan seemed to have noticed their strange expressions, and said calmly, Shu Bao, above the 20 lieutenants, I plan to set up 5 generals, each of whom will command 4 battalions. Do you have the confidence to take on the task? My lord, I will definitely live up to your trust. Very good. Ning Fan nodded with a smile, while Ni Feng and the other two looked at each other, their eyes flashing, and their expressions were different for a while. The time has come. all the generals are ready to enter the second round, and the cavalry battle will determine the top 40. Begin. Qin Chong did not go down to participate in the battle this time. After the first round, he had achieved his goal of establishing his prestige, so he would naturally not go down again, looking at the generals fighting on horseback below. Ning Fan's eyes fell on the horses under the generals. Saddles, stirrups, and horseshoes seemed to be fully equipped. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. In his previous life, he had read many exciting stories in which the first thing the time traveler did was to offer the 3 treasures of horses. But these things are not high-tech products after all. These generals don't seem to be skilled in cavalry warfare. Your Highness, the Imperial Guards are not good at cavalry warfare, and now there are less than 1,000 horses in the 100,000 new troops, so all the generals are weak in cavalry warfare. So that's it. Ning Fan pondered for a moment and said softly, since it is a new army, it cannot be without cavalry. I will return to the palace tomorrow and ask my father to allocate horses and train soldiers. Chu Tianlu smiled bitterly. Your Highness, I don't know that my Dayu has been fighting for many years, the borders are unstable, and horses are in short supply. The 1,000 horses in our new military camp are funded by the Chen family. Oh, looking at Ning Fan's suspicious face, Nifeng said softly, Your Highness, the Chen family has a horse farm in Jiangnan, which is also one of the main sources of my Dayu military horses. Military horse farm. Ning Fan's eyes were shining with a gleam of brilliance, and his face was also surprised. He is worthy of being one of the 4 great families. I didn't expect that he actually held such an important resource in his hands. Chapter 21. Yuang City, Imperial Study. A man in black respectfully knelt in front of Emperor Yu, his face full of panic. Waste, what's the point of me keeping you? Such a big thing happened in the military camp, and you don't know anything. This is the capital, right under my nose. The Emperor Yu threw the glass cup in his hand out, and the man in black below did not dodge, cold sweat on his forehead, silent, waiting for his fate. After venting, Emperor Yu gradually calmed down and said coldly, So, the second brother and Chengning have completely controlled the new military camp. Reporting to Your Majesty, Your Highness has taken control of the military power, the 3 generals have been rescued, and Chen Fang is on the way back to Beijing. Does Chen Fang have any rebellious intentions? I don't know, but the princess is on her way back to Beijing, and I think she will come to see you soon. Humph. Emperor Yu snorted coldly, took a sip of tea, and the teacup fell heavily on the table, saying lightly, Don't do it again, otherwise, there is no need for the secret guards to exist. Yes. The man in black wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said softly, In the military camp. Investigate, thoroughly investigate. I want to know every move in the military camp, secretly detain and interrogate Chen Fang, and block the news from the outside. I want to know if there is any shadow of the Chen family behind this. Yes. West Camp. As the shouts of killing rang out, the generals riding on tall horses seemed to be bloodthirsty, holding wooden sticks and wooden spears, galloping around. In less than half an incense stick of time, more than 30 people fell off their horses. Shubao, starting tomorrow, we will start training according to the general outline of recruit training. The king has ordered the Ministry of Works to build all the necessary tools overnight, and they will be delivered to the military camp tomorrow morning. The king will give you 1 day, and you must popularize the new training method. Yes. Qin Chong nodded solemnly and agreed, and the battle below finally entered the final stage. 40 riders rode their horses to the stage, showing the posture of the winners, and each of them was full of fighting spirit. Ning Fan looked at Qin Chong and Dian Wei on the side, and said with a smile, How about the 3rd round, who will go up? My lord, let me do it. Dian Wei's face showed a touch of excitement. He was a warlike person. Now that he had a chance to take action, he naturally didn't want to let it go. Okay, in that case, let Eli take action. Your Highness, this 3rd round is. Nifeng and others on the side were puzzled, only to see Ning Fan smile slightly, step forward, and say loudly, Congratulations to everyone, you can make it to the 3rd round. If you can survive this round, you will be the captain of my new army. Your Highness, how will the 3rd round be fought? A captain below asked loudly to the generals with an irrepressible joy on his face. The 3rd round is very simple. Ning Fan pointed to the black-faced man next to him and said to the people below, if you can survive 20 rounds in this man's hands, you will pass the test and can serve as a captain. What? As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes were focused on Dian Wei beside Ningfan, with a hint of suspicion on their faces. Could it be that Your Highness was going to let them fight in a round-robin battle? Your Highness, are you serious? Of course. Ningfan winked at Dian Wei, who nodded slightly, rushed to the fighting arena with his 2 axes in hand, and looked at the generals below. Who will go first? I will go first. The big man who asked the question just now was very happy, and he pushed his feet hard, and his body jumped directly from the horse's back into the air, landed lightly on the fighting arena, raised the wooden spear in his hand and said, "Please. Evil come." Ningfan on the high platform couldn't help but remind him, and Dian Wei smiled slightly. He nodded, threw the 2 axes in his hands off the platform, and said to the general, "Come on." This. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment at this scene. Even Chu Tianlu beside Ningfan couldn't help but say, "Your Highness, is it too much for a warrior to fight the enemy with bare hands?" It doesn't matter. It's also very impressive to be able to hold a weapon against Eli for 20 rounds. Eli, be careful. Ningfan's voice was clearly heard by every general below, and everyone looked extremely ugly. Your Highness, you underestimate us. Ha ha ha, we are armed, and the black-faced man is unarmed. Not to mention taking 20 rounds, it would be easy to knock him off the platform. However, what if all 40 of us can take 20 rounds under the black-faced man? Ningfan listened to the general's remarks below and smiled lightly. If you can all take 20 rounds, I will reward each of you with 1,000 gold coins, so what? Your Highness. As soon as these words came out, Nifeng and others all looked worried. You know, this is not a victory or defeat, but 40 people against 1, and it's a round-robin battle. Moreover, these people are all good fighters in the army, and there are even iron-blooded veterans on the battlefield. If the black-faced man loses, Your Highness will definitely lose face. Let's start. Ningfan was still unmoved. His eyes looked at the fighting stage, and saw Dian Wei took the lead, stepped out with an arrow, and blasted the general with a straight punch without any fancy moves. Humph, I want to see how strong you are. The general showed a trace of disdain on his face, and swung the wooden spear in his hand towards Dian Wei, who was rushing forward. Bang! With a crisp sound, Dian Wei stretched out his hand and suddenly grabbed the wooden spear in the general's hand. With an elbow strike, the long spear broke. The general's face changed slightly, and he threw away the spear and punched. Bang! The 2 straight punches collided fiercely. Dian Wei took advantage of the situation and leaned back. With both hands on the ground, he stretched out his legs and kicked the man in the chest. A figure flew backwards like a kite with a broken string, and fell heavily on the high platform. Hiss! Seeing the general on the fighting stage fall to the ground, the generals below were all stunned. Not to mention 20 rounds, Shi Ying couldn't even survive 3 moves. Next one. Dian Wei smiled innocently and looked at Ningfan on the stage. Lord, why don't you let them come together? Arrogant. HMPH, what a big tone. Your Excellency is too much. Even if we are not your opponent alone, we can teach you how to behave together. Lord. Dian Wei ignored the shouting of the crowd below and looked at Ningfan on the stage again. The latter also showed a bitter smile and nodded slightly. Since all the generals are dissatisfied, let's change to a melee. According to the rules of the first round, Dian Wei will be on his own side, and the 40 of you will join forces to form a side. The last 20 people left can be captains. Okay, brothers, come together and teach this arrogant guy a lesson. Watching the generals walk up to the platform aggressively, Dian Wei took off all the armor on his body and put on a serious attitude. Shu Bao, how long do you think they can last in the hands of Eli? My lord, at most 80 rounds. Oh, Ningfan showed a look of surprise on his face. Although he knew that Dian Wei was a half-step peerless with a force value of nearly 100, the average force value of these generals in the army was about 70 or 80. 40 to 1 can't even last 80 rounds. Thinking of this, Ningfan looked at Qin Chong and said, what if it's you? If it's a fist fight, within 100 rounds, if it's a horse fight, at most 50 rounds. This. Nifeng and the other 2 looked at each other, and couldn't help but secretly put themselves in the situation. If the people in the field were replaced by themselves, could they resist 40 people? Begin. As Ning Fan gave the order, the fighting arena suddenly became a mess. 40 people rushed towards Dian Wei in unison. Dian Wei fought and retreated along the edge of one side, always keeping himself in the initiative. Some generals tried to cut off Dian Wei's retreat and completely surround him at the edge, but Dian Wei's fist suddenly turned and attacked the middle of the fighting arena. In just 3 or 5 rounds, he knocked 7 or 8 people to the ground. Awesome! Ning Fan couldn't help but exclaimed, the foot battle is unparalleled, it really lives up to its reputation. Now Eli has gained an advantage. If these generals cannot form an effective offensive and advance and retreat as one, it may be difficult for them to even last 50 rounds. Ha ha ha, that's good, let's sharpen their spirit. The Imperial Army has not been in war for many years. They have been pampered in the capital for many years. They are all fat and big-eared. It's time to train them well. There are many people with high martial arts skills in the new army. I'm afraid that most of these people will be replaced in a month. Your virtue is not worthy of your position. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, Nifeng and the other 2 on the side also looked thoughtful. His Highness's words were a warning to them. With the current military system, the soldiers must work hard and practice hard. At that time, the capable will be promoted and the mediocre will be demoted. If they want to keep their current positions, they can only double their training. In the long run, a virtuous cycle will be formed among the 100,000 troops. How terrible will the combat power be? Nifeng, I'm here. Do you have the confidence to lead an army of soldiers? Hearing Ning Fan's question, Nifeng trembled all over and said excitedly, Your Highness, I can. What about you two? Ning Fan looked at Chu Tianlu and Chai Yu again. They also nodded heavily and looked at Ning Fan with awe. They had heard of this famous playboy in the capital. But through this half-day contact, it was found that His Highness did not seem to be as rumored, ignorant and unskilled, but had an indescribable charm, as if standing here quietly like this could make people feel awe. Now, the entire new army camp has been taken over by this person. Whether it will rise to the top or be lost in the crowd depends on this person's thoughts. The eyes of the 2 people also became hot. Your Highness, I will definitely live up to your expectations. Ning Fan did not rush to express his opinion, but looked at the fighting stage below and said with a smile, It's about to end. Dian Wei jumped up and kicked a burly man off the fighting stage. Only the last 21 people were left on the stage. The 3rd round of fighting is over. Ning Fan smiled slightly and said softly, From now on, the 20 generals on the stage are all military captains, each commanding a large camp with 5,000 people under their command. Thank you, Your Highness. The 20 people were all excited, and they bowed to Ning Fan on the stage, with a look of awe on their faces. How do you feel? Ning Fan showed a playful look on his face, silently watching the captains on the stage. Ha ha ha, of course it's exciting. I didn't expect that I could command 5,000 people. Your Highness, how can I compete for the position of general? Yes, if I can beat the general, can I become a general? A series of noisy discussions rang out, and the 20 lieutenants on the stage were all excited. Someone observed Ning Fan's expression, and the smile on his face gradually froze, and the discussion in the crowd gradually disappeared. Why, are you all excited? Very happy. You are very proud that you can fight out of 200 people and take this lieutenant position. Ning Fan's face no longer had any smile, and all the lieutenants on the stage lowered their heads silently, not daring to look at him. Ha ha, a bunch of trash, 40 people against 1 person, 50 rounds, not only did they not gain the upper hand, but they were defeated by half. Not only do you have no sense of shame, but you are complacent here. Competing for the position of general. Okay. Ning Fan pointed to Dian Wei not far away and said, Who of you can knock him down? Not to mention the general, even if you want to command these 100,000 new troops, I have no objection. But can you? Ah, Ning Fan scolded mercilessly, with a hint of sarcasm on his face, and said lightly, It's not that I look down on you, I'm afraid that none of you here has the courage to stand up. 20 lieutenants said nothing and lowered their heads silently. Ning Fan continued, Do you believe it or not? In a month, there will be dark horses in the new army that will break out from the thousands of troops and replace you. Even among the 20 of you, at least half of you will be squeezed out. By then, the subordinates who once let you boss them around will ride on your heads and show off their power. What can you do? Perhaps some of you have obtained your current position by virtue of your family background or backing, but I tell you that from now on, in my new army camp, no matter what your identity is, everything will be based on strength. You are of noble status, who can be more noble than me? You have a strong backing and are all powerful, but in this new army camp, everything is decided by me. Ning Fan poured a basin of cold water on them mercilessly. Among the 20 people, some secretly clenched their fists, some showed shame, and some looked disdainful. Qin Chong, Ni Feng, Chu Tianlu, Chai Yu, step out. I am here. From now on, each of you will command 20,000 people and call yourself an army, named after the 4 symbols. I will also personally command 20,000 people and name them Qilin. 3 months later, the whole army will conduct a confrontation exercise. Yes, sir. Ning Fan showed a hint of amusement on his face, and said lightly, don't be happy too early. At that time, the 5 armies will face each other. The loser, all the generals above the rank of lieutenant, will run around the military camp naked. Hearing Ning Fan's words, the faces of several generals changed. Running around the military camp naked. It's worse than death. Ning Fan's eyes fell on Qin Chong, who took out the training method that had been prepared long ago from his arms and handed it to Ni Feng and the other 2, saying, 3 generals, from now on, all soldiers in the new army camp will be trained according to this method. This is a new type of training method, and the core of the soldiers' training will be changed from military formation to improving physical fitness. Please study it carefully after you go back. Start training tomorrow morning. Yes. The 3 of them all looked solemn, subconsciously glanced at Ning Fan, took the training method, and after a simple look, their faces suddenly changed. Your Highness, who created it? It's simply unheard of. It can actually train arm strength like this. I didn't expect that a simple bar could be played with so many tricks. Listening to the 3 people's exclamations, Ning Fan said calmly, I believe you all know that this new army, according to the court's plan, is to supplement the troops in all directions of the border. That is to say, one day, these 100,000 soldiers are likely to be dispersed and distributed among the border troops. By then, your stay or departure may be uncertain, so I hope you can turn these 100,000 people into an invincible iron army. By then, even the court may have to think twice. Hearing Ning Fan's words, the 3 people also changed their expressions and nodded heavily. Ning Fan looked at Qin Chong on the side and said, Shubao, before the princess comes back, all military affairs are in your charge. Yes. After arranging the military camp, Ning Fan set off to return to Beijing. Now the 100,000 strong army has not yet been established, and today's main task is to divide it into 20 camps and 5 armies. Qin Chong is enough for all this. The palace. Li Shuning and her brother stood respectfully in front of Emperor Yu, telling him what they had seen and heard today, as well as the causes and consequences. Emperor Yu's face was extremely calm, and his eyes were like a bottomless valley, without any disturbance. You did a good job today. Where is Chen Fang now? Your Majesty, he is waiting outside the palace. Emperor Yu pondered for a long time, and said softly, temporarily detain him in the prison of the Ministry of Justice and wait for his punishment. As ordered. After Li Shuning bowed respectfully, she hurried away with Li Yan. As soon as the 2 of them left the hall, they saw a figure in black emerging from the corner. Your Majesty, have you found out? The man in black nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, I have investigated the matter in detail and have not found any unusual movements in the Chen family. However, this matter is inseparable from Hongxiujiao. Yes. Emperor Yu nodded slightly and said lightly, Hongxiujiao cannot be moved. This matter is over. Take Chen Fang back for a strict interrogation and warn the Chen family by the way. This world belongs to me, not the Chen family. Yes. Tell me about what happened in the military camp. Reporting to your Majesty, His Highness. Emperor Yu frowned slightly and said softly, what kind of tricks has this rebellious son done again? Your Majesty, His Highness King Xuanyang reorganized the new army and divided the army into there are 5 armies and 20 camps. A competition stage is set up for all the generals to compete and select 20 lieutenants, each of whom will lead a camp of 5,000 people. The eyes of Emperor Yu suddenly condensed, and his face was solemn. Tell me in detail. Yes. The man in black stood respectfully and narrated every word of Ning Fan after he entered the camp. Emperor Yu's expression suddenly became extremely serious. Looking at the man in black in front of him, he whispered, "Where is the second brother now?" Reporting to His Majesty, His Highness has returned to the mansion. Returned to the mansion. Emperor Yu frowned slightly, pondered for a long time, and whispered, "Send an order, let Ji Sui come to see me." As ordered. Xuanyang Palace. Ning Fan sat in the courtyard, holding a brush in his hand, waving and painting, and a strange cup-shaped object appeared on the rice paper. "Can this thing be made? Su Bo, the old slave is here. Go find some craftsmen for me." "Yes." Ning Fan pressed the blueprint on the inkstone. "Congratulations to the master, the task is completed, training 2. Congratulations to the master, the spring and autumn assassin is randomly summoned, the merit value is 500 points. After the system evaluation, the task rating is A level, and you get a high-level lottery." Seeing the golden words on the task board, Ning Fan smiled. It was another A-level evaluation. It seems that it is a bit difficult to get the system's S-level evaluation. System, summon the spring and autumn assassin. Summoning, please wait. Congratulations, Master, for obtaining the famous spring and autumn assassin, Xuanzu. Xuanzu. Ning Fan showed a trace of surprise on his face, and whispered, "Check Xuanzu's attribute page." Name, Xuanzu. Dynasty, Western Zhou Wu. Loyalty, diehard. Military strength, 92. Intelligence, 76. Leadership, 71. Politics, 56. Army, none. Magic weapon, Yuchang sword. Mount, none. Unique skill, hidden sword. Special attributes, hidden kill, can hide the body, can ignore the force value and trigger a fatal attack with a 90% chance. After seeing Xuanzu's special attributes, Ning Fan's face showed a touch of surprise. This attribute is simply abnormal. Ignore the force to launch a fatal attack. Moreover, Xuanzu's unique skill is the hidden sword technique, which can hide the sword invisibly. In this way, even a blatant assassination has a great success rate. System, what does the asterisk after Xuanzu's name mean? Reply to the master, Xuanzu is a hero before the Qin dynasty and has memories of his past life. What? Ning Fan's face showed a touch of surprise. He was reborn with memories. Could it be that all the Chinese heroes before the Qin dynasty have memories of their past lives? System, what is going on? The master's current authority is insufficient. After the master has summoned 10 times in total, the authority can be upgraded. Hearing the system's answer, Ning Fan was stunned. The system can actually be upgraded. Where is Xuanzu now? Master, Xuanzu is now in the Xuanyang Palace. Ning Fan showed a look of surprise on his face. He silently shut down the system and felt a cold wind whistling past him. He looked around but didn't see anyone. Xuanzu, Ning Fan exclaimed softly and saw a figure quietly appearing in front of him. He was very thin and his appearance was even more ordinary, but he was full of murderous aura. Greetings, Master. What a strange body movement. Ning Fan can barely be considered a warrior now, but with his vigilance, he couldn't detect Xuanzu's whereabouts. In fact, if Xuanzu had any intention of killing him, he might have become a cold corpse now. Xuanzu, I want you to form a killer organization, are you willing? Killer organization. That's right. Ning Fan nodded solemnly and said thoughtfully, now that I am ready to enter the court, the power of the martial arts world cannot be underestimated, so I want you to start from the martial arts world. My lord, if you want to train a group of first-class assassins, the resources and financial resources required are unimaginable. You don't need to worry about this. You go and organize the people first. After a month, I will give you financial support. After hearing Ning Fan's guarantee, Xuanzu was relieved and whispered, My lord, please give the organization a name. Name, let's call it Hades. Yes, please rest assured, my lord. Give me half a year and I will make Hades famous all over the world. Yes, Ning Fan nodded with a smile, and did not forget to instruct. After all, it is a killer organization. We must keep it secret. Even to our subordinates, we cannot reveal our true identity. Do you understand? I understand. After Xuanzu left, Ning Fan's eyes were full of sharp light. Now that he has begun to step into the court, when the news in the West Camp spreads, it will probably take a few days to attract the attention of the entire court. By then, the peaceful life will be truly broken, and there will be no retreat. System: exchange for a top civil servant summoning card. Congratulations, Lord. The exchange is successful. Do you want to use it? Use. After Ning Fan nodded slightly, he felt a flash of golden light in his mind. After the mysterious wheel turned, a light curtain appeared in his mind, accompanied by a system prompt sound. Congratulations, Master, for getting the famous strategist of the late Han Dynasty, Jia Xu. Jia Xu, Jia Wen. Ning Fan showed a touch of surprise on his face. He didn't expect that this time he would summon this poisonous scholar in Dong Zhou's camp. This man is famous for being good at keeping himself safe. Since the Dong Zhou rebellion, he has been displaced and has successively surrendered to several wise masters. Li Ju and Zhang Shu were all defeated. He turned to Cao Wei and eventually outlasted Cao Cao. After Cao Pi succeeded to the throne, he was ranked among the 3 highest officials. Although he is not as famous as Xuan Yu and Zhu Liang, he is not inferior in intelligence. System: check Jia Xu's attribute page. Name: Jia Xu. Dynasty: Late Han. Loyalty: diehard. Military strength: 71. Intelligence: 97. Leadership: 85. Politics: 93. Compatibility: poisoner. Special attribute: dissociation. Use dissociation timer to increase the success rate by 50%. Jia Xu is the first civil official summoned by Ning Fan. His attribute page is slightly different from that of the military generals. He omits magic weapons and mounts, and his special skills are also turned into characteristics. What surprised him was that he didn't expect Jia Xu's intelligence to reach 97 points. However, on second thought, being able to wander around in various camps and end up well is an ability that is not possessed by ordinary people. Jia Xu is waiting in front of the mansion. Please send someone to greet him. Oh, hearing the system's active reminder, Ning Fan's face showed a hint of surprise. He didn't expect Jia Xu to come so quickly. He greeted a guard and asked the system to start the advanced lottery. Congratulations, Master, for getting a bottle of Tianyuan pill. Tianyuan pill. Ning Fan showed a hint of doubt on his face. He asked about the details of Tianyuan pill and was stunned. It's actually a quick-acting pill. Tianyuan pill. A magical pill made by ancient alchemists. After taking it, it can increase internal strength for 30 years. Each person is limited to 1 pill. Note that after taking it, the internal strength will not improve for life. I didn't expect that internal strength actually exists. Master, the martial arts are divided into internal and external families. Most of the warriors summoned by the system are external warriors, who mainly cultivate muscles and bones, while internal warriors mainly cultivate internal strength. So that's it. Can the martial arts realm of internal cultivators and external warriors be the same? More or less. Internal warriors are also divided into second-rate, first-rate, and master. Hearing the system's explanation, Ning Fan's face showed a hint of realization. In other words, the top warriors are equivalent to first-rate internal warriors, and the peerless warriors are internal masters. It's simple to divide it this way. Ning Fan checked the system space and found that there were 30 pills in a bottle. He was delighted. 30 years of practice can definitely improve a person to the first-class realm, right? Cultivating 30 first-class warriors overnight. It's exciting to think about it. Just after exiting the system, he saw a guard leading a middle-aged monk in a plain robe into the hall. After a respectful salute, he said, "Your Highness, this is the gentleman waiting at the door." "Well, you go down first." Ning Fan smiled at Jia Xu and said softly, "The gentleman is Jia Xu, Jia Wen. I am a commoner, meeting His Highness King Xuanyang." "Ha ha ha, no need to be polite." Ning Fan looked polite and went forward to help Jia Xu up. Literati and warriors are different. In comparison, most of them are more hypocritical and attach great importance to these red tape. "Where is Wen from?" "Zhongnan." "Oh." Ning Fan showed a look of surprise on his face, and said with a smile, "Zhongnan has always produced talented people. I didn't expect Wen to be from Zhongnan. I wonder which famous scholar taught him." "Your Highness, I was born in a poor family. I was lucky enough to read a few books, but I didn't have a teacher." "So that's it. Sir, why are you here to visit me?" "To serve His Highness." Why? Ning Fan showed a hint of amusement on his face. The system arranged an identity for each summoned civil and military officer in this world, which was equivalent to living a new life, but without the memory of the previous life. Reporting to His Highness, I heard that His Highness has recently taken over the western camp of the new army. Sir, you are well informed. Hee. Jia Xu smiled lightly and said, this matter is not a secret in the capital. I have also been wandering in Beijing for more than a month. I have heard about everything in Beijing. Oh, Ning Fan looked at him in surprise and said, could it be that the news that this king took over the western camp has spread in Beijing? Yeah, Jia Xu nodded slightly, smiling and said, with His Highness's reputation in Beijing, it is not easy to keep a low profile. Something happened in the military camp. What is it, do you know? Jia Xu showed a hint of doubt on his face, and shook his head slightly, saying, there is no news at all. It seems that His Highness has caused a big commotion in the military camp. Jia Xu's eyes were shining with wisdom. The West Camp is only 20 or 30 miles away from the capital. If there is any news, it will probably be spread to the capital in a moment. Now there is no movement in the capital. It seems that someone has blocked the news in the army. It can make the entire military camp airtight. Your Majesty. I wonder what Your Highness did to alarm Your Majesty to take action. Jia Xu figured out the whole thing in just a few words, and a look of doubt appeared on his face. He looked at Ning Fan and whispered, Your Highness, has something happened in the army? Sir, you are so good at predicting things. I admire you. Although Ning Fan was smiling, he was very surprised in his heart. He was indeed a think tank with an IQ of 97. Not to mention planning and strategizing, this reasoning alone was enough to make people look at him differently. If I remember correctly, the commander of the West Camp is Chen Fang, the former deputy commander of the Imperial Guards, a descendant of the Chen family, one of the 4 great families of Deu. Is it related to the family? Or, General Chen Fang is in the army? Jia Xu frowned. It was obvious that this matter was very serious, as it could alarm His Majesty to block the news. What kind of trouble could there be in the new army? I'm afraid that this descendant of the Chen family had caused some trouble. Sir, are you willing to enter my Xuanyang palace? Xu, meet the Lord. Hearing Ning Fan's invitation, Jia Xu knelt down without hesitation and changed his address to Lord, which meant that he was the Lord. Haha, there is no need to be polite. Now, under my command, I am in need of a strategist as wise and strategic as Wen. Today, I have your help, which can be said to be like a fish in water and a tiger with wings. My lord, you are too kind. Jia Xu smiled humbly at first, and then asked solemnly, My lord, what happened in the military camp? Ning Fan narrated the events in the military camp. Jia Xu's face gradually became solemn, and he said in a deep voice, It seems that this matter has nothing to do with the Chen family. It is completely because Chen Fang was bewitched by the woman Hong Xiujiao. That's right, Ning Fan also said leisurely. However, I am curious about which family this Hong Xiujiao belongs to. Jia Xu looked at Ning Fan and asked softly, My lord, do you know the general situation of the world? Quote. Of course I know. Ning Fan pondered and said, My Deu is located in the heart of the Central Plains, with powerful countries standing side by side. In the north, there are the 8 barbarian tribes in Mobei, which have been harassing for many years. In the west, there is the Dian Kingdom, which is eyeing us covetously, and in the south, the ancient country of the South Barbarians has been coveting the Central Plains for many years and wants to open the door to my South Barbarians. The east border, the East Wei Kingdom, is my Deu's mortal enemy. They have been conquered for many years and have accumulated grievances for a long time. Not bad. Jia Xu nodded in appreciation and chuckled. My lord has missed one place, my Deu, the land of Wainan. Wainan. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly condensed. There are 5 countries in the Central Plains, 3 of which are bordering Deu, namely Dian Kingdom, East Wei Kingdom and Li Kingdom, and Deu's south border is the Southern Grassland Dynasty, the ancient country of the South Barbarians. The Li Kingdom is located in the southwest of Deu, bordering Deu's 16 states of Wainan. In the early years, when the previous emperor was in power, when Deu was at war with Dongwai, the Li Kingdom took advantage of the situation and marched northward, invading Deu's hinterland, conquering 5 counties in a row, and the southern border was in danger. Lu Kan, then General Pingnan, asked for orders to go to war, led an army of 150,000, defeated the Li army, not only recaptured Daewoo's 5 counties, but also invaded the Li hinterland, conquering 17 cities in a row. At that time, the limelight was unparalleled, the court and the public were shocked, and the Li kingdom asked for peace. Lu Khan was born in a prominent family, and had a great influence in the court and the public. All the ministers asked for orders to be crowned kings, and Lu Khan held a large army, not only holding Daewoo's 150,000 main forces, but also gathering more than 100,000 surrendered soldiers. The 300,000-strong army, entrenched in Huainan, was extremely feared even by the court. Some people even thought that the Lu family had a rebellious heart. At that time, Daewoo's main army was in the eastern border. Once Lu Khan led his troops to the north, the huge Daewoo dynasty would probably collapse in an instant. The previous emperor was in a dilemma and could only make an exception to confer a kingship on Lu Khan, making him the king of Huainan, dividing the counties into states, and ruling the land of Huainan, obeying orders but not announcements. Over the years, the relationship between Huainan and the court has been very delicate. It can be said that both sides are trying to maintain a balance. Daewoo's 4 borders are unstable, and the main forces are all on the borders. Over the years, he has barely defended the land and has been unable to expand the borders. Huainan borders the Li kingdom, and it dares not act rashly. The court rewards Huainan every year. After Emperor Yu ascended the throne, he was also wary of the southern border. Wen means that the southwest is behind Hongxiujiao. Not necessarily. Jia Xu shook his head slightly and said softly, although the king of Huainan has his own army, if he really wants to rebel, I'm afraid he doesn't have the courage, otherwise he wouldn't have waited so many years. And Hongxiujiao dared to attack the new army camp so blatantly, where would my Daewoo secret guards be placed? The barbarian temple of the ancient country of Nanman has been active in the southern border in recent years, but they dare not reach out to the capital. So, according to my guess, Dian Wei should be behind this Hongxiujiao. Oh, Ning Fan showed a hint of doubt on his face, why not Li? Ha ha, Jia Xu said with a smile. Since the king of Huainan took over the 17 cities of Li, the national strength of Li has gradually weakened, and in recent years, it has been fighting with Dian all year round. With the wisdom of the Queen of Dian, she will never be hostile to Daewoo again at this time. And there is no interest in it. Therefore, I guess that the one behind this red sleeve move should be Dian Wei. So that's it. Ning Fan had an idea in his mind. 3 months ago, the 3 dukes of Daewoo marched eastward and fought with Dian Wei in Waning City. Now they have been deadlocked for 3 months, and each has won and lost. Both sides continue to invest more troops, and now it is obviously the time for a decisive battle. If Dian Wei can take Waning City, it will be able to swallow Daewoo. If Daewoo wins this battle, the Eastern Territory will be stable for at least 3 to 5 years. Now it seems that Dian Wei has obviously used a lot of its resources, and even infiltrated from the inside. It seems that Dian Wei has invested a lot this time. My 3 iron-blooded veterans of Daewoo are all heading east. This battle is a battle to determine the country. It's not that easy for Dian Wei to take Waning City. Jia Xu elaborated on the situation on the battlefield in the east border in detail, and Ning Fan agreed with him. Now Daewoo and Dian Wei have invested a lot in this battle. One is to expand the territory, and the other is to defend the land and the people. Both countries will not give in easily. However, according to Jia Xu, Daewoo relies on the danger of the Wei River, backed by Waning City, and 3 famous generals are in charge. I dare not say that it is foolproof, but there is still a 70% to 80% chance of winning. What do you think of Daewoo? Internal and external troubles. Hearing Ning Fan's question, Jia Xu's face was obviously much deeper. Ning Fan raised his eyes and looked straight at Jia Xu, slightly bowed and said, "Please teach me, sir. Just now I talked to the Lord about the general situation of the world. I believe the Lord also understands that Daewoo has many powerful countries on all sides, foreigners are looking around, and there are many powerful families inside. The power of the aristocratic families is chaotic. Daewoo has been in danger for 100 years. The monarch is enlightened and there is no foolish monarch. This is the luck of Daewoo. Yes, Daewoo has been fighting for years, defending a territory. Foreign enemies have been attacking the borders all year round. The military expenses and food and grass consumed are countless, but nothing has been achieved. Quote, the people of Deu are suffering. 9 out of 10 houses in Deu are empty. If this continues, the day of Deu's demise will be just a moment away. Inside the hall, 2 people talked loudly, and outside the hall, 3 figures stood there at some point. The leader was dressed in a brocade robe, exuding a temperament of being in a high position for a long time. His face was majestic without anger, which made people afraid. The 2 people on the side also had a noble look on their faces, with a bit of majesty between their eyebrows. Obviously, they were not ordinary people. These 3 people were the 3 people of Emperor Yu who had just come out of the palace and came to the Xuanyang Palace for a private visit. The person on the left was the commander of the Imperial Army, Jing Li. And the person on the right was the current Minister of War, Jia Xu. Your Majesty. Hush. Jing Li was about to speak, but was stopped by Emperor Yu. He heard the voice in the hall again. Mr. Yu is right. Now I am in a dilemma. I can neither completely solve the border troubles nor the internal dangers. Even my father is controlled by the powerful families. I didn't know it until I was in the military camp. I didn't expect that my war horses would have to rely on the Chen family's horse farm. How absurd. I didn't know it until I learned it carefully. I didn't expect that even the salt and iron mines were mostly owned by the aristocratic families. Most of the civil and military officials in the court were from aristocratic families. Even 70% to 80% of them were from the 4 major families. If this continues, won't this huge court be monopolized by the aristocratic families? When all the civil and military officials in the court are from the 4 great families, won't my father be sidelined? Ning Fan's tone was very deep, and there was even a hint of strong dissatisfaction in his words. Even Emperor Yu outside the palace couldn't help but clench his fist secretly when he heard it, and his face showed a touch of emotion. He murmured, I didn't expect that the second brother could understand my pain. But, what can I do? Alas, Emperor Yu sighed deeply, and Jing Li and Jia Xu on the side both looked thoughtful. Although they were also from aristocratic families, they could not compare with the giants of the 4 great families after all. Just as the 3 of them were sighing, a gentle voice was heard again in the hall. My lord, don't worry too much. The current emperor is wise and brave. Now, in the court, although the left Prime Minister Lin Chushi is from a noble family and is a royal relative, he is also very loyal to your majesty. The main team of the court is still in the hands of your majesty. Besides, your majesty was able to fight his way out of the bloody storm back then, so how could he not have some trump cards in his hand? Yes, Ning Fan's voice sounded again. As long as there is no worry on the 4 borders, no one will ever be able to shake my father's position. The 4 great families, or the wealthy families, are just paper tigers after all. If I, Deu, can get rid of foreign threats one day, or even stabilize the borders, I can free up my hands to clean up the so-called 4 great families. Besides, my generals are loyal to my father and the court, and each of them is a pillar of the country. Why should I worry about it? Emperor Yu stood silently outside the palace, with a look of shock on his face. He didn't expect that his second son, who always showed himself as a playboy, had such a thorough understanding of the court. The gun barrel gave rise to the imperial power, which is simply brilliant. What do you think of what the second prince said? Every word is so insightful. Yes, I didn't expect the second prince to have such foresight. The 2 court officials were full of emotion, but Emperor Yu frowned and whispered, since the second prince is so talented, why does he show himself as a playboy? Could it be that his playboy appearance has been a disguise all these years? Hearing Emperor Yu's mumbling, Jia Xu and Jing Li looked at each other inadvertently, and both saw the surprise in each other's eyes. If what your majesty expected came true, how terrible would this playboy prince be? He obviously has a lot of ideas in his mind, but he is willing to hide his edge, tarnish his reputation, and show himself as a playboy. Not to mention other things, just this tolerance, even the 2 of them would be ashamed. My lord, you are right. Jia Xu's voice sounded again. However, the current political situation is stable, all under the premise of a balance between multiple parties. Once there is a change on the border, this balance will be broken. How will Wanson react? What will the 4 great families choose? Even, will the Central Plains tyrants unite and conspire against my Deu? I understand what you mean, sir. Ning Fan pondered for a long time, and said softly, I have a plan, please teach me, sir. My lord, please tell me. As the saying goes, we must first stabilize the country before we can resist foreign aggression. Now, given my father's situation, we can only find a way to weaken the power of the noble families under the premise of maintaining the stability of the court. The reason why these noble families dare to run rampant and even despise the imperial power is that they are not afraid of the court. The reason is that the court needs them, and the borders are unstable, so the court dare not easily take action against them. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with murderous intent, and he said lightly, if their foreheads will they be afraid of a sword hanging over their heads? What the Lord means is, set up a secret service agency in the court, which only obeys the orders of the emperor, and is given the power to patrol, arrest, guard the ceremonial guard, obtain foreign intelligence, conduct investigations, interrogate, and arrest in the name of protecting the palace. Monitor all officials internally and spy on military intelligence externally. You can kill first and report later. The emperor has granted special permission. What do you think, sir? As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, not only Jia Xu in the hall was moved, but also the three people outside the hall, Emperor Yu, were even more stunned, especially Ji Sui and Jing Li, who added a bit of coldness invisibly. If there really is such an agency, how terrible it would be. What do you two think? Emperor Yu couldn't help but look at the two important ministers beside him. Jing Li smiled innocently, but Ji Sui looked thoughtful and said leisurely, Your Highness's strategy can indeed intimidate the courtiers. But if we want to set up such an institution, how can the civil and military officials of North Korea and China agree to it? Yes, Emperor Yu also sighed with regret. If I really set up such an organization, I'm afraid those powerful families will just knock their heads to death in the Jinluan Palace. But the second brother's plan really goes deep into my heart. Your Majesty, why don't you go inside and ask His Highness face to face? Emperor Yu shook his head slightly and said softly, No, if I were to do it in person, I'm afraid I would be wary of what I said. Wait until they finish talking. After hearing Emperor Yu's words, both of them nodded slightly and said nothing. But the next moment, Jia Xu asked Emperor Yu's difficulties for them. Lord, if such an institution can really be established, I am afraid that the civil and military ministers from aristocratic families in the court will obstruct it in every possible way. He. Ning Fan chuckled and said calmly, I want to ask you, among the people in the court, how many of them have clean butts? Even if it is known that they are corrupt, perverting the law, and even causing trouble for the imperial court, should I dare to impeach them? Do the criminal department and Dali Temple dare to investigate them? My father only needs to use thunderous means to detect a group of corrupt officials, and use thunderous means to frighten the courtiers. When the time comes, he will propose the establishment of a royal guard, and the courtiers will naturally have nothing to say. Jin Yi Wei, hearing Jia Xu's doubts, Ning Fan knew that he had spilled the beans and quickly laughed and said, Jin Yi Wei is the name I gave to this secret service agency. I see, Jia Xu praised, walking in brocade clothes at night, hiding under the wind and moon, watching all living beings with cold eyes. I admire your master's talent. When he was so complimentary. Ning Fan smiled bitterly and shook his head. What you and I discussed today are just words on paper after all. You also know my origin. The blood in my body is destined to prevent me from that position. My father will not delegate power to me, but I really can't bear to see my century-old foundation of Dayu destroyed in one day. The rise and fall of the world is due to the people. What this king has done is nothing but a matter of conscience. Ning Fan's face was also extremely complex, but his eyes were filled with unwavering color. God had given him a chance to live a new life, so he was destined not to be inactive. Outside the main hall, Emperor Yu felt a touch of sadness in his heart. At this moment, he seemed to have completely figured out why the second son wanted to hide his talent, even at the cost of dishonoring himself. Half of Zhou Shi's blood is flowing in his body. Dayu destroyed the Zhou dynasty, and the hatred was irreconcilable. As the son of the eldest princess of the Zhou royal family, would King Xuanyang have any thoughts of restoring the country for Zhou dynasty? When the late emperor was still alive, he refused to pass on the throne to him for this reason. Fortunately, he made a smooth transition from that turmoil, but he was also deeply concerned about this and did not hesitate to establish another queen. The second child was frail and sickly since he was a child, and he liked him the most. Because of this, over the years, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted, and even the warriors who were able to bribe his execution had their own instructions. I just didn't expect that for the sake of this bullshit bloodline and to avoid suspicion, this idiot would hide his talent and make his reputation infamous. It's my fault. Although he has half of the Zhou royal family's blood flowing through him, he is also my son. I didn't expect that my negligence would make him so sensitive. Emperor Yu felt a trace of annoyance in his heart, and he almost couldn't help but rush in, beat the boy up, and asked him why he was so confused. Your Majesty, the talent of His Highness is probably no less than that of His Highness King Shang, and his broad-mindedness cannot be compared even if he is a minister. Yes, the words of His Highness the Second Highness deeply touched my heart. The rise and fall of the world is due to the people. In just a short moment, the two important officials of the imperial court had a great change in their views on this dandy, and a deep sense of admiration arose in their hearts. They both secretly made up their minds to let their boy. It would be better to get closer and closer to this handsome man. Emperor Yu stood there for a long time, and after a sudden change in his expression, he seemed to have made up his mind, and said calmly, I don't allow a word about what happened today to be spread, just treat it as Prince Xuanyang's mansion, we have never been there. Yes. After hearing Emperor Yu's words, both of them nodded heavily, with a look of surprise on their faces. It seems that His Majesty has made up his mind and is going to take action against the noble family. Ning Fan and Jia Xu walked out of the hall and frowned when they saw the three figures gradually disappearing. That figure just now seemed familiar. Royal Palace. As soon as Emperor Yu came back, he summoned the leader of the secret guards in black, sat high on the dragon chair, and said softly, Go and check the officials in the court and give me some clues. Let's start from the Ministry of Personnel and the Ministry of Justice. There are also Dali Temple and Yushitai, we must check them carefully. I want to see how many of these people have dirty butts. Looking at Emperor Yu's murderous face, the black-clothed leader's expression condensed and he bowed respectfully, as you command. Before tomorrow morning, I want to see some real materials. Yes. After the leader in black retreated, Emperor Yu summoned a group of trusted ministers and began to discuss the establishment of a royal guard. Your Majesty, this matter is of great importance and may cause turmoil in the government and the public. So what? Emperor Yu's face was calm, with a hint of coldness in his eyes. He said playfully, could it be that they dare to plot to usurp the throne? Ahem. Several important officials were choked by this sentence, and they all bowed their hands and said they dared not. Emperor Yu's eyes were shining with brilliance, and he said softly, I have sent people to start this matter. Let the left Prime Minister bring it up at the court tomorrow morning. The name of this secret agency is Jin Yi Wei. Lin Chushi's face suddenly became bitter when he heard this. Now he is a representative of the scholars in the court. Although he is not from the four famous families, the aristocratic families have long classified his Lin family into the camp of the aristocratic families. Now His Majesty is obviously forcing him to stand in line. Minister, obey the order. Lin Chushi sighed helplessly. Sitting in this position, he had no choice. His Majesty could not touch the four famous families, but if he touched his Lin family, although it would cause some turmoil, it would not shake the foundation. Emperor Yu looked around and saw that all the ministers had expressed their opinions. He then nodded with satisfaction. Wei Ying, I'm here. Hearing the master's call, the eunuch beside him hurriedly stepped forward and Emperor Yu said leisurely, Go, summon King Xuanyang to meet you, you go in person. When Wei Ying heard this, his face changed slightly and he bowed respectfully, as ordered. Prince Xuanyang's mansion. Your Highness, the craftsmen have been found. All the famous craftsmen in the capital have been found by the old slave. Take a look, can you still use it? Lin Yang grinned, revealing 2 rows of old yellow teeth. Behind him stood dozens of craftsmen in simple clothes, all of whom stood in front of Ning Fan fearfully. Common people see you, Your Highness. See Your Highness. All the craftsmen knelt down and saluted Ning Fan respectfully, lying on the ground without even daring to raise their heads. No courtesy. Ning Fan showed an easygoing smile. You don't have to be formal. I invite you to come today because I have something to ask for. However, don't worry, everyone, I will not treat you badly when doing things for this king. Thank you, Your Highness, I don't know what's wrong. The leader of the craftsmen was an old man with a soft ear. His words and demeanor were neither humble nor arrogant. He had obviously seen the world. Looking at the drawing handed over by Ning Fan, there was a trace of curiosity on his face. If anyone can make this device, I will give you a reward of 10 taels, and you can enter my palace, Prince Xuanyang. Your Highness, is this true? HMPH, how can my Highness tease you? Lin Yong on the side heard the craftsman's doubts, a look of displeasure appeared on his face, and he said lightly, whoever can make this thing, please step forward. After hearing Lin Yong's words, the leading craftsman pondered for a moment and said, Your Highness, this thing has a weird shape. I'm afraid it will take a long time. I am not in a hurry. Ning Fan smiled, looked at Lin Yong, and said softly, Don't neglect to arrange these craftsmen properly. Yes, Your Highness. Lin Yong personally brought the craftsman down. Ning Fan was about to flip through a few pages of the military book when he saw an old man wearing eunuch uniforms walking slowly under the leadership of his guards. Eunuch Wei. After Ning Fan saw the person clearly, his expression was startled. He did not expect that the emperor's personal servant would appear in his house. Wei Ying smiled slightly, bowed and said, Your Highness, by your Majesty's order, we invite you to enter the palace. Oh, Ning Fan had a look of doubt on his face. It was already late. Emperor Yu actually summoned him to the palace at this time. Why did my father summon me to the palace? A wry smile appeared on Wei Ying's face, and he whispered, We don't know the specific reason, but just now, His Majesty and several important officials in the court were discussing it for a long time in the imperial study. Ning Fan nodded slightly, but his heart was uncertain. He looked at the guard next to him and said, Prepare the frame. The palace, the royal study. Your Majesty, His Royal Highness King Xuanyang has arrived. Oh, Emperor Yu put down the memorial in his hand and said softly, Since he is here, let him come in. Yes. Following a soft call from the chamberlain, Ning Fan strode into the hall. After receiving the ceremony, he stood silently in front of the emperor. Wei Ying, inform the imperial dining room to prepare dinner and have more meat to replenish the health of our second son. According to the order, show off to Qianning Palace. Ning Fan followed Emperor Yu without saying a word, but his brows were almost twisted into the character, Sichuan. Could it be because of the incident at the military camp, or the red sleeve move, or maybe it was about Chen Fang? The two sat down in Qianning Palace, and Ning Fan was extremely uncomfortable for a while. In his impression, except for the annual banquet hosted by Emperor Yu and all the princes and princesses dining at the same table, it seemed that the father and son had never been alone. Have had a meal. No need to be formal. Today we are no different than king and minister, please relax. Emperor Yu had an easy-going smile on his face, and his gaze towards Ning Fan was a little softer than before. Forehead. Father, you have something to say. If you want to die, you have to say it clearly, otherwise I won't be able to enjoy this meal at ease. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, the smile on Emperor Yu's face instantly froze. He held the teacup in his hand tightly and his breathing became more rapid. Father is just kidding. Don't get angry. My son, I have something important to report. Seeing the serious look on Ning Fan's face, Emperor Yu's expression condensed and he said calmly, When? Father, I recently discovered an elite organization in Dongwai. Oh, there was a look of surprise on Emperor Yu's face. He slowly picked up the teacup and put it to his mouth. Tell me and listen. Father also knows that my son wanders around Fengyu places all year round, seemingly for pleasure, but in fact he wants to find this spy organization. Over the years, in order to achieve this goal, I have not hesitated to use my body as a bait. While enduring the flirtations of the romantic woman, I also endured the curses of my father. After several years of unremitting efforts, I finally found some clues. Quote, Emperor Yu had a sneer on his face, and his eyes were full of teasing. So, I have misunderstood you. My father's words are serious. In fact, my father is not to blame for this matter. Everything was done willingly by my son. In order to contribute his strength to me, Deu, my sacrifice is nothing. So, you made such a big sacrifice, what did you find out? The red-sleeved moves are the eagle dogs of Dongwai. They want to infiltrate me, Deu, and thus affect the war situation in the east. Hearing Ning Fan's words, Emperor Yu didn't seem surprised, but instead asked with a playful look on his face, "Where's the evidence?" "Evidence? I have no evidence, but there are witnesses." "Oh." Ning Fan reported the matter in detail again, but Emperor Yu didn't care at all. He said lightly, "You must not interfere in the matter of Hongxiujiao. Find a chance to release the person you caught." "Release? Yes, don't alert the enemy." Looking at Emperor Yu's serious face, Ning Fan understood instantly. This old guy already knew the details of Hongxiujiao. But why? Set up a game. Ning Fan's face changed again and again, and Emperor Yu said slowly, "How do you know that Dongwei is behind Hongxiujiao? Why can't it be Dian, or Mobe, or Ligyu?" "Father, Mobe has long fled to the desert and will not come back in a short time. Their henchmen are probably dormant at this moment. Dian and Ligyu are even more impossible." Ning Fan told the speculations of the mansion and Jia Xu one by one. Emperor Yu showed a look of surprise on his face and nodded in agreement. "The reasoning is good. I heard that a gentleman came to your mansion recently. He is well educated and resourceful. What's his name and where is he from?" Ah, Ning Fan didn't expect that Emperor Yu would pay attention to Jia Xu. He smiled and said, "Your Majesty, you are too kind. He is just a poor scholar who can only talk big but has no real talent or knowledge." "Stop talking nonsense. Tomorrow I will go to your house to meet him in person and test whether he has real talent or knowledge." "Your Majesty, it's not that bad. It's settled." Emperor Yu didn't allow him to refute and continued, "Second brother, what do you think of the current political situation?" "Second brother, what do you think of the current political situation?" Emperor Yu held the teacup. His tone seemed nonchalant, but his eyes were always watching Ning Fan's expression. "Political situation. Father, you are making things difficult for me. If you ask me which of the most beautiful courtesans in Beijing is the most beautiful, and which one sings the best, I can really tell you, but if you ask me about governing the country." Ahem. After hearing what Ning Fan said, Emperor Yu was choked by the tea. After a violent cough, there were several black lines on his forehead. "This little beast is still pretending to me. If I hadn't heard his high-sounding speech in the mansion with my own ears, I'm afraid I would have been fooled by him. HMPH, since you want to act, I will act with you." Seeing that Emperor Yu was angry at first, but did not get angry, and gradually regained his calm, Ning Fan couldn't help but secretly admire him. He is worthy of being the ruler of a country. Just this skill of nourishing qi, I'm afraid he can't reach this level even if he is given 10 years. "Second brother, do you know how dangerous the situation of Deu is now? The borders are always in war. The 8 tribes in the northern desert have been plundering the northern border of our dynasty for years. Now, Duke Jingguo and Princess Changning have fought for 3 years and driven them into the northern desert. Dian in the western border is dominating one side, like a tiger lying on the bed, ready to pounce on us at any time and bite a piece of our meat. The barbarians in the southern border are sharpening their knives, claiming to have millions of bows and arrows, and may attack Deu at any time. The battlefield in the eastern border is even more at the moment of life and death. Once defeated, the hinterland of Deu in the eastern border will face the iron hoof of Dongwei." When Emperor Yu talked about this, he sighed and said, "Not only that, although the foreign threat is strong, Deu has loyal and brave soldiers. The most hateful thing is these thorns in the court. Eating for a living, taking bribes and perverting the law, it is simply a crime worthy of death." Quote. Emperor Yu seemed to be really angry. He slammed his chopsticks on the table and looked at Ning Fan. "Have you ever heard of the 4 great families? Chen Shu in Zhongnan, Hu in the border, Cheng in Shuilu, the 4 great families." "Of course I have heard of them." "Yes." Emperor Yu nodded slightly and said in a concentrated voice, "Everyone knows that the Chen family of Shuzhou occupies the rich land in Zhongnan and is said to be rich enough to rival a country, but they don't know that the Chen family's horse farm is the main source of my Deu war horses. They occupy the largest iron mine in Zhongnan. Every year, the court buys pig iron from them at a cost of 1 million taels of silver. Although the border Hu family is not as rich as the Chen family, they control 30% of my Deu's salt mines, and even the local government has become their vassal. The Chengyan Shui family has a deep influence in Zhongbei and they control the main ferry crossings on both sides of the Li River, and even official ships have to pay them fees." Quote. 70% of my Deu's business dealings are inseparable from the water transportation of the Shui family. As for the Liu family, their ancestors were once the founding heroes of our dynasty, and they were granted the title of hereditary marquis. The title of marquis was passed down from generation to generation. They had a profound influence in Jiangdong, and even interfered with the court's control over the local area. Quote, "The most terrifying thing is that they monopolized my Dayu grain store and manipulated the price of grain." Emperor Yu exhaled deeply and said in a deep voice, "Since the founding of our dynasty, we have suffered from wars. The previous emperors of all generations have been committed to defending the land. When the previous emperor was in power, he devoted the whole country's strength to flatten the Great Zhou, which is your mother's dynasty. So far, my Dayu has barely defended the four directions. Although there have been wars for many years, the flames of war have never burned to the people of our dynasty." Quote, "My great Yu has established the country for more than 100 years. Although there has never been an emperor who has made great achievements, every generation of emperors has made achievements. In foreign wars, I, Dayu, have almost never suffered losses." Quote, "But for internal administration, it is a mess." Emperor Yu also showed a deep helplessness on his face, and pondered, "Since I ascended the throne, although I have been determined to weaken the aristocratic families, the situation is unstable. Even if it is me, I dare not act rashly." However, to this day, all the civil and military officials in the court are the henchmen of the four great families. I have no way out. If it is allowed to develop, Dayu will be in turmoil within 30 years, and even in danger of national destruction. After hearing what Emperor Yu said, Ning Fan really understood how terrible the four great families are. You know, salt mines and water transportation are the lifeblood of a country's economy, and iron ore and military horses are strategic materials. And food is the foundation of a country. It is not an exaggeration to say that if the Liu family is willing, they can completely strangle the court. Food, minerals, water transport, and military horses are all so important strategic materials. They are all controlled by the aristocratic families, and their scale is even far greater than that of the imperial court. How terrible is this? I have only heard of the four great families before, and they are famous all over the world, but I never thought that their foundation is so terrible. Second brother, I have been thinking about it for a long time, and finally figured out a plan. You come and plan it for me. After Emperor Yu regained his composure, he looked at Ning Fan with a smile. I am going to set up a secret agency, which will only obey me. In the name of protecting the palace, it will be given the power to patrol and arrest, guard the ceremonial guard, conduct external intelligence, conduct investigations, interrogations, and arrests. Monitor all officials internally and spy on military intelligence externally. You can kill first and report later. The imperial power has granted it. What do you think? As soon as Emperor Yu finished speaking, Ning Fan was like being struck by lightning, and he stood there in a daze, with disbelief in his eyes. Could it be that Emperor Yu is also a time traveler? Isn't this the Jin Yi Wei? After seeing Ning Fan's expression, Emperor Yu also showed a hint of amusement on his face. Is this plan feasible? Yes, feasible. Father, you are wise and brave, I admire you. But, Ning Fan tried to calm down and whispered, Father, this matter is of great importance, we should take a long-term view. Yes, Emperor Yu nodded in agreement. I naturally know the pros and cons. Once I release this news, the civil and military officials in the court will definitely do their best to stop it. But how many of the civil and military officials in this court are clean? I have ordered people to find a group of corrupt officials. Tomorrow morning, I will use thundering means to intimidate the court officials and take the opportunity to propose the establishment of a secret service agency. The court officials naturally had nothing to say. Quote, do you think it's feasible? There was a hint of teasing in Emperor Yu's eyes. Ning Fan's forehead was already sweating coldly, and he couldn't help cursing in his heart. Emperor Yu, this old fox, actually sent someone to monitor himself. It must be like this. My conversation with Jia Xu yesterday was eavesdropped by someone. I must find this fool out after I go back. Seeing Ning Fan's face change, Emperor Yu smiled playfully. Are you thinking that I sent someone to monitor you by your side, and I will find that person out after I go back? Father, can you read minds? Do you have a system too? Emperor Yu did not hear the screams in Ning Fan's heart. Instead, he observed his expression and couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly. What, did I guess what he was thinking? Ahem, My father is wise, powerful, wise and astute, and my sons and ministers admire him. But father, I'd better try to clear this matter with a few important ministers first. This way, the resistance may be reduced. Yes, Emperor Yu nodded with a smile. I have already done everything you can think of. However, in your opinion, how should this spy agency be named, and how should the specific job levels be set? Forehead. Why don't we just call Jin Yi Wei? Let there be one commander, who is the third rank, two deputy commanders, who are the third rank, and 3 supervisors, who are the fourth rank. There are thousands of households under its jurisdiction, and each 100 households are responsible for one county. There are 100 households under its jurisdiction. Ning Fan pondered for a long time and listed the Jin Yi Wei formation in his mind one by one. However, compared with the Ming dynasty, the main difference was in the name. Father, Jin Yi Wei has a transcendent status and power. In the early stage, it can indeed consolidate the imperial power to a great extent. But over time, there will definitely be people who take advantage of their privileges to do things for the tiger. In order to prevent abuse of power, Urchin suggested setting up an internal supervision agency, the Supervisory Committee, to be responsible for supervising the Jin Yi Wei's handling of cases. After listening to Ning Fan's words, Emperor Yu fell into a brief thought. This boy really had something up his sleeve. What you said makes sense. I will discuss this matter in detail tomorrow morning. When you go back, write a report and submit it. Tomorrow morning, you can join us too. When Ning Fan heard that Emperor Yu asked him to go to court, he immediately said with a bitter look on his face, Father, my son is now shouldering a heavy responsibility. Tomorrow is the first day of training for the new army. It is really difficult to get away. If you didn't tell me, I almost forgot. Emperor Yu put a piece of meat on the plate, put down his chopsticks and said, You made such a big fuss in the army, have you ever thought about the impact? Influence. What impact? Most of the middle-level generals of the new army are dignitaries in the capital. Now that you have implemented this new rule, you have directly dismissed most of them. Aren't you afraid of making them resentful? Of course not. Ning Fan smiled innocently. My son is just a big playboy. Going to the military camp to mess around is just a waste of time. If he accidentally affects innocent people, he will only make them feel unlucky. After all, the reputation of a son-in-law and a playboy has long been ingrained in the hearts of the people in the capital and the civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty. No matter how ridiculous you do, it's still reasonable. When Emperor Yu heard this, he suddenly looked startled, laughed and cursed, I'm not ashamed, but I'm proud. But, having said that, Commander of the Imperial Guards, who do you think is worthy of this important task? This. Looking at the serious look on Emperor Yu's face, Ning Fan couldn't help but feel entangled. He really knew very little about the ministers in the court, and now what was the deep meaning of Emperor Yu asking him for advice? Father, I have told you that it is related to government affairs, but I don't know anything about it. Emperor Yu was immediately angry, but after thinking of Ning Fan's words at home, his expression softened a lot. After pondering for a long time, he said softly, In that case, let you take charge. Tomorrow morning, I will issue the decree. When Ning Fan heard this, he froze on the spot for a moment. Let himself serve as the commander of the Jin Yi Wei. This is tantamount to putting yourself on the fire and roasting yourself over and over again. After the Jin Yi Wei is established, it will definitely become a thorn in the flesh of aristocratic families and corrupt officials. And since he has no foundation in the court and no one under his command, he may directly become the target of public criticism. Father, this matter is absolutely. Just as he was about to refuse, he suddenly heard the system prompt sound. Boom. Release system task. Serve as commander of Jin Yi Wei. Task time limit. 7 days. Task requirement. Successfully win the position of commander of the Imperial Guard. Task reward. Ming Dynasty Jin Yi Wei Commander, Zhang Wei, 14 Jin Yi Wei 1000 households, Jin Yi Wei Elite 1000. Father, this matter must be left to my son. If my son serves as the commander of the royal guards, it will be a knife in my father's hand. No matter whether it is a powerful family or a corrupt official, it will be a sword in my father's hand. They are just a bunch of chickens and dogs. Give me a month, and you will definitely create a team of royal guards. Emperor Yu saw that Ning Fan originally meant to refuse, but for some reason, he suddenly changed the topic and responded with a look of surprise on his face. He said with a smile, "Okay, I hope you can take up the important task and give me something. Look at what you're really capable of. Son, obey the order." Ning Fan saluted solemnly, and felt a little more excited in his heart. If he was given an empty shell and asked to go against the courtiers of the famous family, he would definitely not want to, but if there was a ready-made Jin Yi Wei establishment, it would be very useful for his future plans, even more powerful. After the father and son discussed the business, they started chatting. Ning Fan could always say a few mean and obscene words from time to time, which made Emperor Yu dumbfounded. Gradually, the two of them had completely let go of the difference between monarch and minister. "Father, do you believe that iron lumps can fly in the sky?" "That's nonsense. Hey, I've seen it before. You kid, when will you be less naughty and more steady? You will be able to take on big responsibilities." "Father is joking, but my son is a big dandy. With this token, you can enter and leave the palace freely from today on, no need to report." "Is this the imperial order?" Ning Fan looked at the golden token in his hand, with a look of surprise on his face. Although this thing is just an entry and exit order of the palace, it is not as simple as a simple entry and exit order from the hand of Emperor Yu. In a sense, holding this token represents Emperor Yu to a certain extent. It can even mobilize some city defense troops. "Father, you are generous. I must take you to Fengxiang Tower to visit in the future to repay your kindness." "Get lost." After Ning Fan walked out of the palace, he couldn't help but stop and look back, with a sharp light in his eyes. Jin Yi Wei was just the beginning. He had never thought of becoming the commander of Jin Yi Wei, but he had never given up the idea of forming a force. However, now that he can take the position of Jin Yi Wei commander, it is just right to put it in the open, attracting some people's attention, and some things will be much easier to do. Although the two of them got along happily and easily today, Ning Fan didn't take it seriously after all. As the saying goes, there is no family affection in the imperial family. He couldn't make a mistake and would never be defenseless against Emperor Yu just because of the brief tenderness with him. After walking out of the palace with a calm face, Dian Wei had been waiting for a long time. The two of them ran towards the Xuanyang Palace without saying a word. Several figures ran out of the palace almost at the same time, heading in different directions. The wind is going to blow. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.